Chapter 420. With the demon's sword erected in front of the Pill Emperor Hall, the entire moon continent was in an uproar. Everyone was in awe of this matter. Back then, when the young man returned, he dragged the demon's sword for 100,000 miles because of his love. This was to tell everyone that he, Qin Wentian, had returned and he would make Luo He pay the price for what she had done to him. However, the spectators didn't dare to imagine that although Qin Wentian had outstanding talent, his combat prowess was still too weak. How could someone at the first level of Heavenly Dipper contend against the Pill Emperor Hall? The experts of the Pill Emperor Hall were as common as the clouds. What the spectators saw was only the tip of the iceberg. If the true pillars of the Pill Emperor Hall were to be drawn out, they would definitely be extremely terrifying. Yet, Qin Wentian had no way to truly control the demon sword. If they really fell out, even if he dragged the demon's sword and borrowed its might to sweep through the heavens and earth, he would still die without a doubt. What he was facing was a transcendent power of the moon continent, a transcendent power ranked within the top 5 in Grand Xia, the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian had the will to sever the heavens, but how could he do anything to the 99 steps of the sky connecting Grand Hall? The matter of the Pill Emperor Hall selecting a son-in-law for Mo Qingqing had already caused a huge commotion in the 9 continents. The number of people in the moon continent was innumerable. And now that Qin Wentian was standing right outside the Pill Emperor Hall, slapping Luo He's face, the commotion grew even more intense, as though a storm was brewing. Today, the day had finally arrived. In front of the Pill Emperor Hall, below the 99 steps of the sky connecting Grand Xia, there were silhouettes everywhere. However, they all avoided a certain location. Over there was only a single sword erected in the air. Nobody dared to approach it. On the 99 steps of the Pill Emperor Hall, the silhouettes of the Pill Emperor Hall stood in the air. Among them, Luo He stood in the center. With a single glance, she could already see the demon's sword as her countenance turned exceptionally cold. Qin Wentian slapped her face like that. She wanted to see how Qin Wentian would dare to show up today. If he came, she would make sure that he wouldn't be able to return. Shifting his gaze over, Luo He spoke. Friends from the various transcendent powers, please ascend the 99 steps. For this selection of son-in-law, we welcome all of you to be our witnesses. As soon as she finished speaking, many figures walked out. They were all from the overlord forces of the 9 states. They stepped onto the 99 steps and came to the wide square in front of the main hall of the King of Elixirs and sat down. Those who have signed up for this selection, please stand below the 90th step. Luo He continued speaking. Momentarily, several silhouettes stepped up, squeezing their way towards the 90th step. In an instant, the 90th step was filled with silhouettes, with no gaps at all. If those at the back wanted to ascend, they would have to force them down first. There are so many people. The participants for this selection are all Heavenly Dipper sovereigns below the age of 30. Not only that, all of them have extraordinary looks. If not, it would be too shameful if they were kicked out because of their looks. As for those below the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, wanting to marry Mo Qingqing is nothing but a fool's dream. The Pill Emperor Hall is recruiting a son-in-law, and it's for the sake of Mo Qingqing. No wonder there are so many outstanding characters participating. Leaving aside the transcendent powers, even the transcendent powers below them have sent out their most outstanding characters. If one of them could become the son-in-law of the Pill Emperor Hall and marry Mo Qingqing, the status of his or her sect or clan would surely skyrocket. However, how could it be so easy to walk all the way to the end? In the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, only those who stand on the 90th step will have the qualifications to enter the Pill Emperor Hall and participate in this selection. Luo He continued, after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, as long as you are still standing on the 90th step, you can continue onwards. Now let the selection begin. As the sound of her voice faded, the atmosphere abruptly tensed up. The number of experts on the 99 steps were as many as the clouds. It was extremely congested. Luo He would only select those who stood on the 90th step. At this moment, those who stood on the 90th step all felt a terrifying pressure bearing down on them. The auras of those below them were extremely terrifying. Their astral souls and astral novas were frenziedly released, and in an instant, A terrifying qi current gushed forth. The eruption of the battle was even faster and more violent than what the spectators had imagined. Just a single sentence from Luo, he had caused the entire crowd to erupt into a frenzy. The spectators only felt their hearts pounding violently as they stared at this terrifying battle. Over there, fresh blood splattered everywhere as screams of misery rang out unceasingly. In just a short instant, it was unknown how many experts had been killed or heavily injured. This was too cruel. Although Luo he was the daughter of the Pill Emperor of the Pill Emperor Hall, she wasn't a benevolent person. Her state of heart was cold, and she chose the most direct and cruel method of selection. There are a few people who are so strong, nobody can blast them off the platform. Very swiftly, the spectators noticed a few dazzling characters. Their cultivation bases were all at the second or third level of Heavenly Dipper. For those below the age of 30, being able to reach the third level of Heavenly Dipper was already an extremely terrifying feat among the transcendent powers. Only the most outstanding demon-level geniuses would be able to achieve this. As for those at the fourth level of Heavenly Dipper, they didn't see anyone. Reaching the fourth level of Heavenly Dipper before the age of 30 was simply too terrifying. Even Hua Taishu wouldn't be able to achieve this. A cultivator at the third level of Heavenly Dipper was already at the peak of this selection. As for those at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, they were the weakest and were easily blasted off the platform. Some of their injuries were light and some deep, but they didn't even have the strength to continue climbing up. Those who can stand on the 90th step are mostly from the transcendent powers. Chun Lai from the Chun clan was also extremely famous back then. He's the elder brother of Chun Wang, and although his talent isn't as high as Chun Wang's, his cultivation base is higher than Chun Wang's. Not only that, he was also a famous ranker on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Isn't Hua Chung from the Hua clan here as well? Although his brilliance was completely suppressed by Hua Taishu, he himself is also an extremely powerful character. Seems like there are many geniuses who want to win the heart of the beauty this time around. That's Wang Yifei from the Wang clan from the War Continent. I heard that not long ago, Wang Ju was killed by Qin Wentian. I don't know if this is true or not, but rumor has it that Wang Ju died when Qin Wentian pulled out the demon sword. If this is true, the Wang clan would definitely hate Qin Wentian to the bone. If Qin Wentian appeared today, who knows how miserable his fate would be? The Chun clan, Hua clan, Wang clan, who wouldn't want him to die? Not to mention the Pill Emperor Hall and the Star-Seizing Manor. Would they be able to spare him? This Qin Wentian is truly a demon-level genius who dares to contend against the entire world. But from the looks of it, he would either fall here today, or become an unparalleled character. That's how the Azure Emperor died back then. I'm afraid that Qin Wentian won't be able to escape. The spectators murmured as they thought of Qin Wentian. Ever since Qin Wentian rose to prominence, although he had only accomplished 2 to 3 things, his actions were simply too sensational. Not only that, there was a high possibility that he would come here today to cause trouble. His demon sword was erected in front of the Pill Emperor Hall. He would definitely not allow this son-in-law selection to go smoothly. Who is that man? He's so handsome, and with a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, he can actually stand on the 90th step. Nobody can blast him off the 90th step. At this moment, someone pointed his finger at a silhouette standing on the 90th step. This person wielded an ancient halberd, and his attacks were tyrannical to the extreme. No matter who tried to attack his position, he would simply strike out with his halberd. Nobody would be able to withstand his attacks. At this moment, a cultivator at the second level of Heavenly Dipper dashed towards him. This person wielded a lightning sword in his hands, and a terrifying amount of lightning energy erupted forth. His astral nova shone with a terrifying light, yet he still managed to block the attack with his halberd. This halberd strike was like a dream, yet when it landed, an irresistible force directly penetrated through the lightning sword, slamming into the chest of that cultivator, causing that cultivator to cough out blood as he fell to the ground. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn passed very quickly. When Luo he announced the end of the selection, only 48 cultivators remained on the 90th step. All of you come up. For the others, you can either stand on the 99 steps or watch from below. Luohi waved her hands as she turned and walked towards the host's seat. The 48 cultivators followed her up the 99 steps, arriving at the center of the vast public square. Around them were the transcendent powers from the various transcendent powers. As for the others, they were either hovering in the air or standing on top of the stairs, staring up at the sky. Although the time it took for an incense stick to burn had only passed, the 48 cultivators who remained were all elites. Each and every one of them exuded an extraordinary aura. Among them, there were several young men from the various transcendent powers. Those from the transcendent powers all had smiles on their faces. If they could marry a Mo Qingcheng, so what if they had to marry into the Pill Emperor Hall? This would undoubtedly improve their relationship with the Pill Emperor Hall. Luohi sat on the host's seat. Mo Qingcheng was her disciple. Hence today's selection would be presided over by her. Only to see her gaze turning into the horizons as she stared at the demon sword that was several times taller than the seat she was sitting on. A cold light flickered in her eyes. She wanted to see when Qin Wentian would appear, daring to cause trouble in the Pill Emperor Hall. Retracting her gaze, she turned her gaze onto the 48 cultivators as she casually stated. All of you are handsome and outstanding, and have decent combat prowess. For this selection, there's no need to determine the rankings. We only need to select 3. In that case, the rules will be as you wish. From now on, all of you can choose your own opponents. The loser shall leave, the winner shall remain. As the sound of her voice faded, the silhouettes of the participants flickered as they chose their opponents. There were still many more challenges waiting for them, hence for the earlier battles, they naturally had to choose those with weaker combat prowess. The Swallow Swordsman Han Qing chose an opponent at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. This person was also the only one at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. He wielded an ancient halberd in his hands, exuding a tyrannical aura. But after all, he was only at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. How strong could he be? Han Qing stood in front of the halberd wielder, his countenance calm as he stared at him. Swallow Swordsman Han Qing, please guide me. As the sound of his voice faded, the sword in his hands emitted a humming sound. The corners of Han Qing's lips curled up slightly. Although his words were polite, his tone was filled with disdain. Chapter 421. Han Qing was also extremely famous in the Yin Prefecture. Now that he had a cultivation base at the second level of Heavenly Dipper, his swordplay was as fast as the wind. Out of his 4 astral souls, 2 were speed-type astral souls, while the other 2 were sword-type astral souls. What he pursued was precisely speed. There was no need to doubt the attacking prowess of the sword. Hence, as long as one had sufficient speed, they could easily defeat their opponent. At this moment, the young man standing opposite of Han Qing had a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. Although he was extremely powerful, Han Qing was confident that his opponent wouldn't be able to last more than 10 moves. Opposite of Han Qing, the young man wielding the ancient halberd could clearly see the slight smile on Han Qing's face. However, there was no expression on his face. No one knew what he was thinking in his heart. The others also found their own opponents. 48 people. A total of 24 battles. Luckily, the public square was large enough to support their battles. Please guide me. The young man wielding the ancient halberd calmly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, Han Qing casually smiled. Sir, be careful. As the sound of his voice faded, his sword was like the wind. His silhouette was enveloped by the wind, transforming into a series of afterimages, as fast as lightning. His sword, startling wind, was like a mirage. The moment the sword struck out, the halberd-wielding young man seemed to have all of his escape routes firmly sealed off. No matter which direction he dodged to, as long as there was a slight change in his opponent's sword move, he would immediately be able to take advantage of it. However, the halberd-wielding young man didn't seem to have any intentions of evading. Qin Wentian took a small step forward. It was as though this single step caused the entire space to move with him. He was like the ruler of this space. The ancient halberd in his hands abruptly pierced out, tyrannical like a dragon, pressing forward with an indomitable will. Wind shadow. His opponent released his will of mandates. Han Qing's body seemed to have transformed into the shadow of the wind. His body seemed to have suddenly disappeared, hidden within the wind. However, the sword chi he released was still as strong as ever. A cold light flashed, startling wind, piercing towards the halberd-wielding young man. This thrilling scene caused the spectators to sigh in admiration at the exquisiteness of this sword technique that was infused with mandates. With such speed, the halberd-wielding young man had no way to defend against it. But at this moment, a thunderous sound rang out. The ancient halberd actually collided head-on with the sword. There wasn't the slightest bit of sloppiness. This strike was clean and could be said to be perfect. Those who were paying attention to the battle were momentarily stunned. How did the halberd-wielding youth do it? Han Qing had transformed into a gust of wind, and when his sword had struck out, it had already descended upon the halberd-wielding youth's body. But how was it that Han Qing was able to use his ancient halberd to block the opponent's sword? Naturally, there were also those who clearly saw the movements of the halberd-wielding young man. They were even more shocked because they discovered that at the instant Han Qing's silhouette disappeared, the ancient halberd of the young man was already moving. There wasn't the slightest bit of hesitation in his movements. It accurately retracted for an instant before explosively blasting out. Coincidentally, the sword of his opponent appeared. It was as though the halberd-wielding young man was able to predict where Han Qing's sword would strike from. This caused the spectators to feel a chill in their hearts. Han Qing's wind shadow was formless and formless. That was the power of a second-level mandate. Yet his opponent was actually able to accurately counter it with no hesitation at all. Han Qing also believed that even if he couldn't instantly defeat his opponent, it would at least cause his opponent to be flustered. After which, his startling wind sword would be able to cause his opponent to suffer a crushing defeat. However, things didn't go as he wished. When the ancient halberd collided with his sword, he actually felt an irresistible force directly blasting into his chest. It was as though the force of the halberd had traveled through space, causing his body to be battered by waves of terrifying energy. Pooh! Coughing out a mouthful of fresh blood, Han Qing explosively retreated. However, he only saw his opponent chasing after him with lightning speed. Han Qing's countenance paled as he howled, "I admit defeat." As the sound of his voice faded, the silhouette of the halberd-wielding young man landed cleanly on the ground. His countenance didn't fluctuate in the slightest. This battle was the quickest to end, causing many to cast a few more glances at the young man as shock filled their hearts. This young man had a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, yet he was able to cause Han Qing to vomit blood with a single strike. He was definitely an extraordinary character, yet they didn't recognize him at all. In the entire 9 prefectures of Grand Xia, they had never heard of a young genius wielding an ancient halberd. Unless, this young man wasn't someone from the 9 prefectures, and had never roamed around the 9 continents before, which was why he didn't attract any attention. But now, he was here for the Pill Emperor Hall's son-in-law selection. Did he want to make a name for himself with a single battle? Not long after, the first battle ended. On the public square, only 24 people remained. The majority of these 24 are actually geniuses from the transcendent powers. The silhouette at the entrance of the Pill Emperor Hall stared at these people. Would Mo Qingqing's future husband be chosen from among these people? Who would be the final victor? Let's continue. Find your opponents and defeat them. Luo He's voice was serene, as though she was speaking of an insignificant matter. The instant the sound of her voice faded, other than a select few, the others all moved. They wanted to find the easiest opponent to defeat. Only then would they be able to proceed further down the rankings. Although the halberd-wielding young man had defeated Han Qing, his cultivation base was after all only at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. Compared to the other participants, many felt that it would be easier to deal with him. Hence, there were 3 people who dashed towards him at the same time. However, the person closest to the halberd-wielding young man was the first to act. That person didn't give the other 2 any chance. He directly acted against the halberd-wielding young man. The instant he acted, it meant that he had already chosen his opponent. There was no room for others to interfere. But at the instant he moved, the halberd-wielding young man also moved. His speed was like a bolt of lightning fast. The halberd-wielding young man's speed was in no way slower than Han Qing's wind shadow. In a flash, his ancient halberd violently slashed out. This strike contained no feints. It was the most direct, most tyrannical halberd strike. In fact, it couldn't even be considered an innate technique. It was merely a halberd strike. This seemingly ordinary halberd strike caused everyone to feel as if it was the only thing left in the entire area. The young man attacking the halberd-wielding young man was also at the second level of Heavenly Dipper. When he gathered his strength and counterattacked, the howl of a ferocious beast could be heard as he transformed into an incomparably terrifying flood dragon. His body was akin to the body of a flood dragon as his gigantic palm imprint slammed towards the ancient halberd. Just like his previous battle with Han Qing, he ended the battle with a single move. He was still the fastest person to do so. Although this young man with a halberd cultivation base is relatively weak, most of the rest of the people present are Heavenly Dipper Realm 3rd layer experts, but the strength of 2 consecutive games still makes him attract enough attention. However, the next winner will be the existence of the 3rd stage of the Heavenly Dipper realm. I'm afraid that the halberd youth will stop here. And as expected, after this battle ended, the remaining 12 participants, other than the halberd-wielding young man, were all existences at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. Not only that, every single one of them was a famous character. The halberd-wielding young man standing at the top seemed to be a little out of place. Chen Lai, Wang Yifei, Huacheng, Shikuang, Xiaoyu, etc. Which one of them wasn't a famous character? Luo He stared at the remaining 12, her countenance as calm as ever. Among these 12, there were many extraordinary characters. However, Luo He wasn't satisfied with any of them. After all, none of them were the most outstanding among the transcendent powers. But now, what she wanted was no longer to choose a good husband for Mo Qingcheng. Lifting her gaze, Luo He stared at the towering demon sword far away. He hasn't appeared yet. She wanted to see how long he could endure after bringing the demon sword into the moon continent. Continue. Luo He's voice was devoid of any emotions. She didn't even set any rules. She merely allowed the battles to continue. In the end, only 3 would remain. As for who she would choose, she had already made up her mind long ago. It didn't matter anymore because this wasn't her most important goal. This Luo He actually only set such a simple rule, allowing them to continue being eliminated. The hearts of the spectators were filled with shock. But in a battle like this, there was a possibility that the stronger ones would be eliminated by the stronger ones. This time around, the movements of those participants actually slowed down, after which, some of them started walking towards their opponents. Xiaoyu chose the halberd-wielding young man. Seems like the outcome of this battle has already been decided. What sort of character is Xiaoyu? Among the younger generation of Heavenly Dipper sovereigns from the star-seizing manor, he can be ranked within the top 3. The halberd-wielding young man was as calm as ever, as though he would always be like this. Bang! Xiaoyu stepped out, his palms seizing the stars. His terrifying star-seizing palm imprint annihilated the entire space as a terrifying astral light flashed, as though he wanted to kill the halberd-wielding young man with a single strike. The halberd-wielding young man slashed out with an indomitable will, as though this was the only halberd art he knew. However, when the ancient halberd collided with the terrifying star-seizing palm imprint, it actually shattered into pieces. Xiaoyu coldly snorted. How could a mere first-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign defend against his star-seizing palm imprint? With a flick of his sleeves, his palms abruptly expanded as he blasted out yet another palm strike. This time around, the halberd-wielding young man was enveloped by astral light, akin to a prison. Xiaoyu's palm strike wanted to pluck the stars and reap his life. Bang! Terrifying astral energy erupted from the location of the halberd-wielding young man, as the star-seizing palm imprint crushed everything in its path. However, at this very moment, a whistling sound rang out as those from the star-seizing manor abruptly stood up. Their countenances froze as they stared at the scene before them. The ancient halberd had directly pierced into Xiaoyu's throat. Xiaoyu thought that this strike should have ended the battle. But in that instant, the halberd-wielding young man actually appeared behind Xiaoyu, directly piercing through Xiaoyu's heart. The halberd-wielding young man had his back facing Xiaoyu. The other end of the ancient halberd was still dripping with fresh blood. and the sound of his voice caused the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. The halberd-wielding young man had killed Xiaoyu from the star-seizing manor. The Venerate Heavens sect also sent out experts to participate in this matter. The countenances of those from the star-seizing manor turned ashen. This technique, stellar transposition, was one of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. The Venerate Heavens sect was the most proficient in using this technique. The halberd-wielding young man slowly turned around as he pulled out his ancient halberd. Xiaoyu's body fell to the ground as he stared at those from the star-seizing manor with an ice-cold countenance. Naturally, he wasn't someone from the Venerate Heavens sect. He was none other than Qin Wentian. He suppressed all his anger because he had yet to see Mo Qingcheng. He also couldn't sense where she was. Hence, he could only use the disguise technique he obtained from Di Feng to alter his appearance. He had to take the risk of participating in the Pill Emperor Hall's son-in-law selection. He needed a chance to interact with Mo Qingcheng. Chapter 422. Luo He's eyes similarly flashed with sharpness as she stared at Qin Wentian. Stellar transposition was a technique controlled by the Venerate Heavens sect, but ever since the Heavenly Fate Rankings battle, the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia had been circulated to the public. Chen Wang and Shi Patian had both cultivated the stellar transposition. Hence, it wasn't strange for the Chen clan and Shi clan to have hidden experts who wished to marry Mo Qingcheng. What truly caused Luo He to be taken aback was that whenever this man fought, he would always use the simplest and most effective methods to defeat his opponents. She couldn't even tell what innate techniques or mandates he was proficient in. If that was the case, she wouldn't be able to see through his true identity. However, after this battle, those who fought against him in the next round would definitely have to treat him seriously. Proficient in the stellar transposition technique, if one was like Xiaoyu and was the slightest bit careless, they would definitely be killed in a single strike. Although those from the star-seizing manor were enraged, they couldn't do anything to Qin Wentian. However, they had already decided that after this matter was concluded, they would definitely investigate the identity of this person. This person actually showed no mercy, slaughtering those from the star-seizing manor. After this round of battles ended, there were only 6 people left standing in the public square. After another round of battles, 3 of them would be eliminated, leaving behind only 3. Currently the remaining 6 were Chen Lai, Wang Yifei, Hua Cheng, Shi Kuang, Long Yan and Qin Wentian. Chen Lai from the Great Solar Chen clan, the elder brother of Chen Wang. Wang Yifei from the Wang clan. Hua Cheng from the Hua clan. Shi Kuang from the Shi clan. Long Yan from the Beast King Hall. Only Qin Wentian, who wielded the ancient halberd, no one was able to see through him. The 6 of you will be eliminated one by one. A cold light flickered in Luo He's eyes. As the sound of her voice faded, the gazes of the crowd turned to the 6 people standing in the middle of the public square. Luo He actually allowed them to engage in such a chaotic battle. Chen Lai's eyes were like flames, flickering with light. The great solar bloodline in his body seethed as a heaven-scorching aura gushed forth, causing people to not dare to approach him. Chen Wang obtained the secret technique, and the revolving star transposition technique. This Chen Lai, it is very likely that he also cultivated, coupled with his Heavenly Dipper realm 3rd stage strength. Who knows how strong he is? Nobody dared to make a move against Chen Lai. There was a high possibility that Luo He of the Pill Emperor Hall would choose him. Chen Wang stood in the direction of the Chen clan, his eyes gleaming. In this battle, Chen Lai would definitely become one of the top 3 rankers, and he would marry Mo Qingcheng. Today he would like to see if Qin Wentian would show up. His eyes coldly stared at the demon sword in the distance. He hoped that Qin Wentian wouldn't disappoint them. Chen Lai didn't move, neither did Wang Yifei. As for Hua Cheng and Shi Kuang, their gazes collided with each other. The 2 of them advanced towards each other, and an instant later, an intense battle erupted. Hua Cheng and Shi Kuang were both exceedingly powerful, and their attacks were incomparably violent. As for the others, they merely watched the 2 of them fight, not moving at all. You go and ambush one of them. A voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears, causing his countenance to stiffen. This was the voice of Chen Lai. It seemed like these people had been secretly communicating with each other. Qin Wentian didn't move, he continued standing there quietly waiting. Chun Lai's brows twitched as he coldly stated, "I'll give you one more chance." Qin Wentian still didn't move. After which he saw the flame dragon walking towards him, while Wang Yifei walked towards the battle between Huacheng and Shikuang. The arms of the flame dragon transforming into the arms of a terrifying demonic beast. Terrifying demonic qi gushed forth from his eyes. The flame dragon of the Beast King Hall was also a half-beastman, possessing the blood of a flame dragon. His strength was tyrannical, and he was extremely lustful and greedy. "That woman will definitely be mine," the flame dragon icily stated, and as the sound of his voice faded, he lunged towards Qin Wentian, his speed as fast as lightning. His demonic arms blasted out towards Qin Wentian as a terrifying flame dragon claw manifested in the air. In the center of his palms, terrifying streams of flames could be seen, capable of melting the bodies of humans into liquid. The flame dragon had a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. The pressure he unleashed was extremely tyrannical. On the tip of the ancient halberd in Qin Wentian's hands, a powerful surge of energy gushed forth. Qin Wentian stared at the flame dragon as he blasted out explosively. This halberd strike was akin to an illusion, instantly descending upon Qin Wentian. The flame dragon coldly snorted as his palms smashed downwards, wanting to clash head-on with Qin Wentian's ancient halberd. However, right at this instant, a thunderous rumbling sound rang out as Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from sight. At the instant he vanished, astral light flashed as Chun Lai appeared beside the flame dragon. A terrifying great solar universe palm imprint blasted out, as both his palms blasted out simultaneously. One was aimed at the flame dragon, while the other was aimed at Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's silhouette had already appeared in another battlefield. Wang Yifei and Huacheng joined forces to attack Shikuang, but at the instant Qin Wentian appeared, the ancient halberd that was supposed to be aimed at the flame dragon unhesitatingly shot towards Huacheng instead. Now that these experts were clashing, they wouldn't give you a chance to kill in a single strike. One of Huacheng's astral novas, a gigantic saber, directly slashed out, blocking in front of him. However, Shikuang's astral nova was also slammed over. This astral nova of his was in the form of an incomparably gigantic stone golem, and it directly slammed its palms into the gigantic saber that sliced through the air. At the same time, Shikuang's silhouette vanished as he reappeared in the air above Huacheng. Punching out with his fist, it felt as though a mountain peak was crashing down on Huacheng. Wang Yifei, Huacheng roared. But at this instant, the astral nova in Wang Yifei's hands erupted forth. It wasn't aimed at Shikuang, nor was it aimed at Qin Wentian. Instead it was aimed at Huacheng. In that instant, Huacheng's countenance paled. His teammates who had joined forces with him earlier had instantly turned into enemies. With a pincer attack from 3 directions, Huacheng would definitely die. Bang! In the air, Shikuang's attacks were extremely violent. The instant his attacks landed, Huacheng's blood and qi churned violently from the impact. Wang Yifei's long spear sealed off all possible escape routes, while Qin Wentian's ancient halberd pierced out with indomitable might. "I concede," Huacheng roared. Wang Yifei's long spear transformed from a stab into a slap, abruptly slamming into Huacheng's back, causing him to be flung forwards. With a light piercing sound, Qin Wentian's ancient halberd directly pierced through the center of Huacheng's brows, causing the countenances of those from the Hua clan to turn cold. However, the battle didn't have the slightest pause. After Qin Wentian killed Huacheng, Wang Yifei immediately acted. Numerous astral novas whistled through the air, each of them exuding a terrifying killing intent that towered up to the heavens. They pierced through the air, aiming for Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian stepped out as astral light erupted forth. With no hesitation, he executed stellar transposition and vanished from his original location. When his silhouette reappeared, he was already in the air. And at this moment, Chun Lai had already defeated Yan Long. He slowly walked over, and upon seeing Huacheng's death, a cold light flickered in his eyes. Only 4 people remained. In that case, things would be much easier. "Do you want to scram yourself, or do you want us to force you to?" Wang Yifei's countenance was ice cold. As he stared at Qin Wentian in the air, Qin Wentian noticed that the gazes of those 3 people were all fixed on him. It would be extremely difficult to deal with these 3 people. Their 12 astral novas were more than enough to suppress him. There was no way he could fight against them, unless he thought of a way to kill one more of them. Although the Luo River clan only needs the top 3 rankers, there's still a need for a ranking. If you guys kill me, the following battles wouldn't be so easy. Qin Wentian transmitted his voice into the ears of the 3 people. The eyes of the 3 flickered with sharpness, yet none of them replied. They only stared at Qin Wentian. As for what they were planning in their hearts, only they themselves would know. The 4 of them each had their own ulterior motives. My combat prowess is the weakest. Even if I manage to enter the top 3, I won't pose a threat to you in the end. Why must you be in such a hurry to eliminate me? Qin Wentian transmitted his voice again. The eyes of the 3 flickered with sharpness, but to Chen Lai and the other 2, they had no idea if Qin Wentian was speaking to only one of them or to all of them. Die. Wang Yifei stepped out, moving towards Qin Wentian. 3 astral novas floated in front of him. As the terrifying long spear astral novas exuded a fearsome sharpness. Chen Lai and Shi Kuang also stepped out, encircling Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance was ice cold, as he continued transmitting his voice to the 3 of them. Naturally, the words he spoke were all different. Finally, when Wang Yifei's 3 astral novas exploded forth, Qin Wentian also rushed towards Wang Yifei. Shi Kuang's countenance turned cold, abruptly turning his body to face Wang Yifei as he madly slammed out with his palms. Initially, Chen Lai didn't move, but now that the situation was clear, he naturally wouldn't mind adding hail to snow on top of snow for Wang Yifei. Hence, the 3 of them instantly surrounded Wang Yifei. Just like what Qin Wentian had said. Wang Yifei was the only one who didn't know the stellar transposition innate technique. Eliminating him would be the easiest. I concede. Wang Yifei's countenance paled when he saw Shi Kuang and Chen Lai's astral novas rushing towards him. The 3 of them all knew the stellar transposition innate technique, and if they used it at the same time, he would die without a doubt. Hence, he could only unwillingly concede. He had been tricked by the halberd-wielding young man. At the instant he conceded, a strange change occurred. Chen Lai's astral novas didn't continue blasting towards him. Instead, they directly bypassed him and shot towards Shi Kuang. At the same time, Chen Lai's silhouette vanished from sight. This was the stellar transposition innate technique. Qin Wentian also vanished, rushing towards Shi Kuang. The 2 of them seemed to have already discussed this beforehand. This was the plan Qin Wentian had told Chen Lai, and Qin Wentian was extremely cooperative in executing it. Chen Lai was naturally very satisfied, because as long as he could finish off Shi Kuang, Qin Wentian would be a dead man. At that time there would no longer be a need to choose who Mo Qingqing belonged to. Shi Kuang's body was clad in the golden dragon battle armor, but how tyrannical was Chen Lai's attacks. When he cooperated with Qin Wentian, they directly executed the stellar transposition innate technique, disregarding the consumption of astral energy in their bodies as they frenziedly launched an encirclement. The spectators couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. Finally, under the pressure of Chen Lai, Shi Kuang was pierced through by Qin Wentian's ancient halberd, causing his internal organs to tremble violently. Qin Wentian could feel the madness of his opponent, and with a ferocious flick of his ancient halberd, he flung Shi Kuang away. And at this moment, Chen Lai and Qin Wentian were almost face to face. Without any hesitation, a malevolent smile flickered in Chen Lai's eyes. In the air, a flame venerate blasted out a terrifying great solar palm imprint. Chen Lai's left hand directly grabbed onto the ancient halberd that Qin Wentian had just retracted, while his right hand blasted out a terrifying flame dragon, capable of devouring everything. Boom! A terrifying sword intent abruptly erupted forth. In an instant, a king's sword instantly penetrated through the body of the flame dragon, bringing with it a boundless sword intent as it shot towards Chen Lai. Chen Lai's countenance stiffened. Yet another flame venerate soared through the air, lunging towards Qin Wentian. However, in that instant, Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from sight. A terrifying sword hum rang out in the air, and Chen Lai only felt a boundless sword intent revolving around him. His body similarly soared through the air, and both of their silhouettes vanished. Bang bang bang. In the air, astral energy unceasingly erupted forth. The two of them actually used stellar transposition consecutively, to the point where even their silhouettes couldn't be seen. How terrifying would such a rate of consumption be? The hearts of the spectators trembled. Was this a war of attrition? Luckily, this was the final battle. Bzz. The keening of a sword rang out, after which, the spectators only saw Chun-Li's silhouette appearing. Both of his hands were clutching his throat as fresh blood flowed unceasingly. Beside him, Qin Wentian quietly stood there, a sword in his hands. This sword strike was extremely light, and its attack power wasn't very strong. But when used together with the stellar transposition, Qin Wentian seized the opportunity to kill Qin Wentian in a single strike. In fact, the spectators couldn't even see how that sword pierced through. They only saw a flash of cold light flickering in their eyes. It was too fast. Chun-Li dead, Shi Kuang grievously injured. Out of the top three, only Qin Wentian remained unharmed. Was this the ultimate goal of Qin Wentian? Scheming step by step until he killed Chun-Li. This young man was truly terrifying. Those from the Chun clan stood up, coldly staring at Qin Wentian as killing intent permeated the air. Even Luo He stood up, staring at Qin Wentian. Senior Luo He, do we still need to choose? Qin Wentian spoke. At this moment, he no longer had any competitors. In this place he was the only one left. Although the spectators didn't understand how a first-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign could achieve such a feat, they knew that Qin Wentian had truly relied on his true strength to kill Chun-Li in a single strike. Even if Chun-Li was stronger than him, he still wouldn't be able to escape from that resplendent sword strike. Luo He, could she choose a dead person or a grievously injured one? It seemed like she could only choose him. Chapter 423. Luo He stared at Qin Wentian. The appearance of this person had completely disrupted her plans. She cast a glance at the demon sword in the distance, but the person she was waiting for had yet to appear. Who are you? Which power are you from? Luo He coldly asked. Junior's name is Si Yan. I'm not from any power and have always cultivated alone. Now that the selection has ended, would Senior Luo He allow Miss Qingqing to meet with me? Qin Wentian had a smile on his face, as though he couldn't wait any longer. Anyone who could marry a woman like Qingqing would definitely feel proud of themselves. And now Luo He wanted to choose from the three of them. Si Yan. Luo He pondered over this name, surnamed Si, and was proficient in stellar transposition. She couldn't help but wonder if this person was from the same place as Si Qiong back then. Bring Qingqing here. Luo He indifferently commanded. Momentarily, the people behind her departed. Qin Wentian's heart involuntarily trembled, yet he forced himself to remain calm. At this moment he couldn't afford to panic. Today he had to bring Qingqing away, no matter the cost. Luo He didn't let her guard down. She stared at him as she slowly spoke. You said that you're not from any power. In that case, where did you cultivate stellar transposition? The elders in my clan taught me. Qin Wentian smiled. Since he had displayed his stellar transposition, Luo He would definitely question him further. Not to mention, there weren't many powers that could use stellar transposition. He had already assumed the name Si Yan, because he wanted Luo He to misunderstand. Is that so? Where is your clan? Would the elders in your clan allow you to marry into the Pill Emperor Hall? Luo He coldly asked. Naturally. The elders in my clan have been meticulous in nurturing my elder brothers, yet they didn't care about me at all, allowing me to wander wherever I want. There's nothing wrong with me joining the Pill Emperor Hall, not to mention that I'm a beauty. Qin Wentian calmly replied, as though he had long prepared his words, hinting that his elder brothers in his clan were more outstanding than him. You still haven't answered my earlier question. Where is your clan? Luo He continued. Not in Granxia. Qin Wentian faintly replied. Luo He coldly replied. If not in Granxia, then where? Senior, why is there a need to ask so clearly? Qin Wentian suppressed the fluctuations in his heart, appearing as calm as the clouds and wind, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Luo He coldly glanced at him. But at this moment, Mo Qingqing's silhouette appeared in the distance. Far behind her, there were a few silhouettes. At this moment, Mo Qingqing was still as beautiful as ever. However, she seemed a little haggard, causing people to involuntarily feel a sense of pity in their hearts. Qin Mo at her. Luo he faintly spoke. To tell you the truth, this disciple of mine is still in a dilemma regarding her marriage. As her master, I have no choice but to seal her cultivation base and console her. I hope that she will be able to understand me in the future. As she spoke, Qin Wentian's perception was focused on his surroundings. When Mo Qingqing appeared, there were already a few powerful auras permeating this entire space, as though they were guarding against something. This caused Qin Wentian's heart to tremble, as he felt an incomparable coldness in his heart. The Pill Emperor Hall had always been on guard. For this son-in-law selection, since you've achieved so much, the first person I'll consider would naturally be you. But before that, you still have to pass the examination of my Pill Emperor Hall. Now come with me, come to my side. Luo he faintly spoke. Qin Wentian hesitated, but he didn't move. Luo he furrowed her brows as she spoke. Why? Are you unwilling? In that case, I can only choose someone else. Can I speak a few words with Miss Qingqing first, and ask for her opinion? Qin Wentian couldn't help but ask when he saw that Luo he didn't allow Qingqing to come forward. Sure, come over first. Luo he nodded her head. Qin Wentian didn't hesitate, he lifted his foot and walked towards Luo he. The people from the various transcendent powers all turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian. This scene caused the spectators to feel a strange atmosphere. Something was amiss, as though something was about to happen. Qin Wentian slowly walked towards Luo he. Luo he calmly stared at him, as though everything was normal. Finally, Qin Wentian arrived in front of Luo he. And in that instant, Luo he's palms abruptly stretched out, stretching out towards Qin Wentian. Peng! Qin Wentian stepped out as astral light erupted forth. His silhouette instantly vanished from sight, and at the place where he was standing earlier, vines snaked through the air. If Qin Wentian had been the slightest bit slower, he would have been completely bound by them. Luo he's palm was still stretched out in the air, staring at Qin Wentian, who had instantly retreated to the edge of the 99 steps. A cold light flickered in her eyes. You are indeed afraid. In that case you must be Qin Wentian. As the sound of her voice faded, the people from the Chun clan, Wang clan, Star-Seizing Manor, and the other transcendent powers all stood up. Their gazes fixed on Qin Wentian as a terrifying aura enveloped Qin Wentian. Peng! Astral light erupted forth once more as Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished once more. And at the instant he vanished, a middle-aged man from the Chun clan appeared at the edge of the flight of steps he was standing on earlier. The terrifying flaming palm imprint grabbed onto nothing but air. As for Qin Wentian's silhouette, he executed stellar transposition consecutively, his speed so fast that the vision of the spectators couldn't even follow his movements. Not long after, he stood atop the demon sword, his eyes gleaming with an incomparably cold light. You are indeed Qin Wentian. Luo he was merely guessing earlier. She had never seen Qin Wentian appear before the Pill Emperor Hall. Given his frivolous personality, since he had already brought the demon sword to the Pill Emperor Hall, there was no way he wouldn't show up. However, even after Mo Qingqing appeared, Qin Wentian still hadn't appeared. Instead, it was this Ziyan who stated that he wanted to see Mo Qingqing. Hence, Luo he made a move to probe, and as expected, Ziyan immediately retreated. She immediately guessed that this Ziyan was none other than the Qin Wentian she had been waiting for all this while. The gazes of the spectators all landed on Qin Wentian, only to see the contours of his face twisting and contorting. An instant later, his countenance changed into that of an ice-cold, devilishly handsome countenance. Many in the crowd drew in a breath of cold air. It was actually him. The top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Qin Wentian. He had actually managed to sneak into the crowd to participate in the Pill Emperor Hall's son-in-law selection, killing Chunlai and becoming the last person remaining. He had almost come into contact with Mo Qingqing, but Luo he's schemes were exceedingly deep. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes froze as she saw Qin Wentian's appearance. Tears welled up in her eyes as she sobbed in a low voice. She understood Qin Wentian. She knew that this young man was willing to sacrifice his life to protect Chu Tianjiao for the sake of her foster father, and even dared to kill Hua Xiaoyan for her sake. No matter what she said, Qin Wentian would never back down. Her heart was filled with pain. Because of her, she had implicated Qin Wentian. This pain caused her entire body to tremble uncontrollably. If anything happens to you, I won't be able to live alone. Mo Qingqing bit her lips as she inclined her head, staring at Qin Wentian with a resolute gaze. She knew that any words she could say would be useless in this situation. They could only live together, or die together. You are not allowed to die, and I won't allow you to die either. Qin Wentian stared at Mo Qingqing, his eyes filled with an unwavering resolution. Luo He, back then you promised me that if I defeated Zhang Qin, you wouldn't interfere in the matters between me and Qingqing. Now not only did you break your promise, you even resorted to unscrupulous methods to make use of Qingqing in order to lure me out. This is the way the Pill Emperor Hall does things. Qin Wentian stared at the silhouettes approaching him from the side. Sword light flashed as he sliced open his palm, fresh blood dripping from it. Instantly, the demon sword let out a mournful wail as its sword intent towered up to the heavens. Pill Emperor Hall? Today, if you don't hand Qingqing over, even if I die, I will make sure the Pill Emperor Hall collapses. Qin Wentian stepped down, his blood unceasingly dripping onto the demon sword. His other hand transformed into the arm of a demonic beast as demonic chi towered up into the skies. With a howl of rage, he tried to pull out the demon sword but to no avail. He could only allow the demon sword to tilt to the side as his body landed on the ground, dragging the demon sword with him as he advanced step by step forward. The sword whistled through the air. The entire space was filled with the terrifying sound of a sword. A bone-piercing chill seeped into one's body, causing people to involuntarily shiver. Those who have something to do with this matter, step back now. Qin Wentian's voice rang out together with the sound of the sword. Everyone hurriedly retreated, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire. After they retreated, the experts from the Pill Emperor Hall instantly appeared, preparing to surround Qin Wentian's subordinates. The bodies of those experts trembled involuntarily. This sword intent was too terrifying. It had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. It was rumored that this demon sword hated the heavens for being too low. Qin Wentian fed it with his own blood, and dragged it for 100,000 miles, spending a total of 3 months before he finally managed to erect it outside the Pill Emperor Hall. Initially, they didn't believe this rumor, thinking that it was an exaggeration. But now, when the sword might erupted forth, even an expert like Luo He felt a sense of suffocation. Not only that, the demon sword hadn't even gotten close to him yet. On the 99 steps of the Pill Emperor Hall, experts were as common as clouds. They were all waiting for Qin Wentian to walk into their trap. There were too many secrets on Qin Wentian's body. Leaving aside everything else, just the divine steel and the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia were already sufficient to cause the transcendent powers of Grand Xia to go crazy. Yet at this moment, not a single one of them dared to rush forward. They only stared at Qin Wentian as he advanced step by step. Every step he took was incomparably heavy, causing cracks to appear on the ground outside the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian dragged the demon sword as he advanced step by step until he reached the bottom of the 99 steps. Boom! Qin Wentian slowly stepped out, stepping onto the first step. Today, Qin Wentian dragged the demon sword along as he ascended the 99 steps, advancing step by step. All of you leave. An expert from the Great Solar Qin clan waved his hands to the experts behind him. They couldn't allow any of the younger generations to remain behind, or they might very well die under the demon sword. Chen Wang's countenance turned ashen. Back then, he was unexcelled in the heavenly fate rankings. Yet now, he actually had no choice but to retreat in the face of Qin Wentian. Not only for those from the Great Solar Qin clan, those from the Transcendent Powers all ordered the weaker ones to leave and enter the Pill Emperor Hall. As for the stronger ones, they surrounded Qin Wentian in all directions, wanting to kill him. Since you brought the demon sword here today, you can stay here forever. Luo He's countenance was ice cold as she stared at Qin Wentian, who was slowly ascending the steps. Qin Wentian inclined his head, his cold eyes sweeping over to Luo He as he coldly spoke. If the Pill Emperor Hall doesn't collapse, I won't leave here today. Duh. As the sound of his voice faded, a boundless sword might blasted towards Luo He. In an instant, Luo He's countenance stiffened. Numerous towering ancient trees manifested around her, enveloping her within. The ancient trees were destroyed and reborn, growing and multiplying endlessly. Atop the towering Pill Emperor Hall, numerous tyrannical silhouettes appeared. They stood with their hands clasped behind their backs, their eyes gleaming with a divine light, exuding an unexcelled aura as they stared at the young man wielding the sword. In the surroundings, there were also many experts spectating from the shadows. Today, for the sake of Mo Qingqing, the first ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Qin Wentian, with a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, had barged into the Pill Emperor Hall alone, declaring that if the Pill Emperor Hall didn't collapse he wouldn't leave. Such lofty sentiments. Even if he died here today, his name would be imprinted in Grand Xia. In the air, amidst the churning clouds, several silhouettes could be seen standing there. One of them was clad in tattered robes, casually standing there, as though he was the ruler of this world. As for the other, he lay lazily in the clouds, his cloudy eyes staring downwards, as though he was a sadistic sadist, dragging his sword for 100,000 miles, barging into the Pill Emperor Hall alone. The experts gathered outside the Pill Emperor Hall, whose blood would dye the clouds red. Chapter 424. Qin Wentian slowly ascended, his steps firm and resolute. His gaze was fixed on the staircase, nobody could obstruct him. Die. Another voice rang out from Qin Wentian's mouth. Instantly, the sound of sword whistling filled the air as the vines and trees around Luo He were slashed apart. At the same time, all the vines and trees were slashed apart. The sword light swept past, resembling a beam of light. A terrifying sword light flashed past, directly in front of Luo He. Abruptly, a towering gigantic sword manifested, exuding a sword might that could annihilate everything, only to see a silhouette walking over, standing beside Luo He as he stared at Qin Wentian below. Everyone, this sword is too demonic. After we kill this brat, this sword will no longer pose any threat to us. That person spoke. Instantly, the experts around Qin Wentian released their astral novas, causing the pressure in this space to make it hard for the spectators to breathe. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see anything. His blood unceasingly dripped onto the surface of the demon's sword as he continued ascending the staircase. My will is the will of my sword. Qin Wentian's voice rang out. His calm voice melded together with the sound of the sword whistling, becoming one with the other. His voice was the sound of the sword whistling. His will was the will of his sword. At this moment, Qin Wentian only felt that his connection with the demon's sword had deepened. An expert from the great Solar Chen clan slowly walked towards Qin Wentian. With a grab of his palm, a terrifying inferno manifested in the air, condensing into a terrifying hell-flame demon, directly manifesting in front of Qin Wentian, blasting towards Qin Wentian. The body of this hell-flame demon was incomparably gigantic, and with a single palm strike, it seemed as though it could shatter everything. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see it. He continued ascending the staircase. Boom! His foot landed on another flight of stairs. At the instant his foot landed, the boundless sword Qi transformed into a gigantic sword that pierced through the hellfire demon. Flames danced in all directions, but were instantly reduced to dust by the sword Qi. This scene caused everyone to exclaim in their hearts. How strong was the sword will near Qin Wentian? Brother Wang. Only to see that expert from the Chen clan turning his gaze onto an expert from the Wang clan of the War Continent. That expert from the Wang clan stepped out as he retrieved an item with 10 million strands of silk in his hand. With a wave of his hand, the 10 million strands of silk shot towards Qin Wentian, transforming into an inescapable net that shot towards Qin Wentian. The incomparably terrifying sword Qi slashed at it, but it was unable to cut it apart. It was obvious that this was a powerful divine weapon. Qin Wentian inclined his head, but he didn't look at the inescapable net. Instead, he stared at that expert from the Wang clan. His eyes seemed to originate from the coldness of eternity, capable of freezing the souls of those who stared at him. That expert from the Wang clan only heard the shrill cry of a great rock. His countenance turned incredibly unsightly as he retreated with explosive speed. He only saw a gigantic rock that blotted out the sun zooming past him, its wings wanting to lacerate his throat. Bang! The silhouette of the great rock vanished from sight. However, the shrill cry of the sword didn't cease. The heart of that expert from the Wang clan shuddered as another wave of coldness pierced through his throat. His silhouette flickered with extreme speed, as fast as a beam of light. Everything happened in an instant. When that expert from the Wang clan coughed up blood, the crowd still didn't dare to believe their eyes. What they saw was real. But that falling body of his, as well as that divine weapon that fell from the sky, had no intention of confirming his death. The shrill cry of the sword, the silhouette of the great rock. This is the melody of the sword, the will of the martial Tao. Qin Wentian borrowed the power of the demon sword. His intent was the sword intent of the sword. The eyes of the crowd narrowed as their hearts trembled. This young man was too terrifying. Although Qin Wentian wasn't able to control the demon sword, the might he could unleash by dragging it along with him was already sufficient to cause others to feel awe in their hearts. Before this, no one in Grand Xia had expected that the immovable demon sword at the bottom of the precipice in the Sword Reverence City would be so terrifying. They simply didn't dare to imagine. If there was someone who could truly control the demon sword, how terrifying would that person be? It would be sufficient to sweep across the entire Grand Xia. However, it was rumored that this demon sword was unmovable throughout the ages, and no one had ever managed to pull it out. Most probably, some of the peak characters of Grand Xia had also tried, but the fact that the sword hadn't left the precipice indicated that no one had succeeded. Hence, how difficult would it be to completely control it? However, what the crowd didn't expect was that the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Qin Wentian, had seized ancient luck and inherited the mandate of heaven. It was as though the mandate of heaven had returned, and he had successfully pulled out the demon sword. And now, a single person wielding a single sword, flaunting his might in front of the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian finally stepped onto the 99th step. When he stepped out, the entire Pill Emperor Hall shuddered. His demon sword was still dragging along the steps, as he turned his gaze onto those from the Wang clan who hadn't left yet. You all treat my life like grass, killing me whenever you want. In that case, I'll treat all of you like ants. So what if I'm the enemy of the entire Grand Xia? As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, a cold light flashed as the sword whistled through the air. In the direction of those from the Wang clan, a raging wind gusted by as the silhouette of a great rock blotted out the sun. Everywhere it passed by, blood rained down like rain. In an instant, it was unknown how many experts had fallen. Just like what Qin Wentian had said, these transcendent powers had never placed him, the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, in their eyes. A fallen genius wasn't a genius at all. In their eyes, Qin Wentian would die without a doubt. Hence, they treated Qin Wentian's life as nothing but grass. They were only thinking about how to divide the secrets on Qin Wentian's body. Since this was the case, what else could they say? They could only kill him. Boom. Qin Wentian stepped out once more, dragging the demon sword up as the humming sounds of the sword echoed unceasingly. Luohi's heart trembled. This sword was actually so powerful. Die. Qin Wentian howled in rage. The sound of a dragon's roar echoed out as the silhouette of a terrifying dragon lunged towards Luohi, wanting to devour her. Luohi's countenance stiffened as an ancient tree wrapped around her body. A thunderous rumbling sound echoed out as Luohi was flung through the air along with the ancient tree, slamming heavily into a stone wall. Qin Wentian didn't even bother to glance at her. He continued walking towards Mo Qingcheng. Those who obstruct me die. Qin Wentian's gaze was incomparably cold. As the sound of his voice faded, those beside Mo Qingcheng all collapsed to the ground. Only Mo Qingcheng remained standing there unscathed, staring at Qin Wentian in a daze. I will definitely bring you away. Qin Wentian's voice was filled with an incomparable resolve. Mo Qingcheng shook her head. Her body was enveloped by a powerful force, as a stifling pressure bore down on her, causing her robes to flutter wildly in the wind. You won't be able to bring her away. In the towering great hall, a figure stared in their direction. His eyes were incomparably terrifying, capable of penetrating through space. As the sound of his voice faded, Mo Qingqing's body rapidly retreated. Qin Wentian could only watch helplessly as Mo Qingqing's body was sucked away. The moment he broke free from the demon sword, not only would he not be able to save Mo Qingqing, he would also die for sure. Staring at Mo Qingqing stretching out her hands, her eyes filled with unwillingness to part with him, Qin Wentian's heart was filled with an endless amount of pain. Just like that, Mo Qingqing was dragged further and further away, gradually disappearing from his vision. Qin Wentian's gaze was ice-cold. His perception followed Mo Qingqing's direction, and even when they reached the end of the Pill Emperor Hall, his perception was still there. It was as though a gate to a forbidden ground had been opened, and Mo Qingqing was sucked into it. Beyond the gate to the forbidden ground, the air was misty and misty. However, Qin Wentian could sense an incomparably evil energy within. Take good care of yourself. Mo Qingqing closed her eyes. Her beautiful countenance was wet with tears. It was as though she was speaking to thin air. She hoped that no matter what happened to her, he would be safe and sound. Busy. Mo Qingqing's body fell into the depths of the abyss. Qin Wentian's perception was also about to follow her into the abyss. An even greater evil energy permeated the air, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble violently. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out as the forbidden gate closed, directly isolating his perception. Qin Wentian didn't see what was below, but he knew that there was a terrifying evil existence hidden below the precipice. No. In the Pill Emperor Hall, a roar of agony and despair accompanied by the melody of a sword echoed through the air. Qin Wentian roared to the heavens as he continued stepping out, as though he wanted to rush towards the forbidden gate. His killing intent engulfed the entire space, causing people to feel a bone-chilling coldness in their hearts. Why did Qin Wentian feel such despair? Busy. Atop the towering great hall, a few silhouettes slowly walked over, descending upon the surroundings of Qin Wentian. They stared at Qin Wentian, who was howling in agony, yet their eyes were incomparably cold, devoid of any emotions. Despair, this is only the beginning. A cold voice rang out, after which, the silhouettes surrounding Qin Wentian waved their hands, and in an instant, numerous terrifying stone pillars descended from the skies, landing in the surroundings of Qin Wentian. Boom, boom, boom. The stone pillars were connected by an invisible force. Those silhouettes coldly stared at the silhouette of that young man. For daring to offend my Pill Emperor Hall, your girlfriend shall be consigned to eternal damnation. As for you, your soul shall be stripped away. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying might enveloped Qin Wentian, who was in the center of the stone pillar. A terrifying light radiated from the pillar, causing countless people to tremble. Those are the Vice Hall Masters of the Pill Emperor Hall. They activated the soul-severing formation of the Pill Emperor Hall, forcibly stripping away Qin Wentian's soul. No matter how strong the sword is, Qin Wentian will die for sure. The spectators sighed in their hearts. Despite Qin Wentian's outstanding talent, there was no doubt that he would die today. And also Mo Qingqing. What a pity for this immortal couple, to be killed so tragically. Yet it was as though Qin Wentian hadn't heard the words of those silhouettes. He inclined his head, his eyes that seemed to have come from the depths of hell stared at the skies as a single teardrop flowed down his face, only to see that his lips were trembling. At this moment, a gust of wind rose up in the Pill Emperor Hall. The raging wind gusted by, extremely cold, extremely cold. At this moment, astral light cascaded down from the skies. Countless constellations cascaded downwards, landing on Qin Wentian. At this moment, Qin Wentian stood there, as though he was a silhouette from the primordial era, or an ancient divinity, accepting the worship of the people from all directions. Between the heavens and earth, a demonic wind could be heard, as demonic howls could be heard. The chant of the demonic divinities, ancient will connecting the heavens, gathering demonic chi from the 8 directions, devouring demonic energy from the starry skies, connecting the 8 demonic divinities. My life, demon transformation. An ancient voice rang out, as though it originated from the primordial era. Tears flowed down from the corners of Qin Wentian's eyes. His body was currently undergoing a terrifying transformation. Chapter 425. Boundless demonic qi converged from the heavens and earth, landing on Qin Wentian's body. The spectators only saw his body growing larger and larger, as the terrifying shadows of the primordial demonic beasts flickered, interweaving with each other on Qin Wentian's body. It was as though demonic divinities from the 8 directions were descending on his body. Kirin, ferocious and violent. Great rock, with a wingspan of 1,000 miles, causing raging winds and gigantic waves. Vermilion bird, with a long screech, as though the heavens and earth were trembling, blazing flames incinerating the heavens. The winged dragon of the 9 heavens was like the sovereign of demons, peering down at the heavens and earth, unexcelled in the world. These terrifying demonic shadows all landed on Qin Wentian's body, as though they were from the void, able to communicate with the demonic divinities from the 8 directions. In that instant, the countenances of countless people changed. The eyes of those from the Pill Emperor Hall flickered with a terrifying light, as they channeled their astral energy into the stone pillars, causing them to float up into the air. A resplendent light enveloped Qin Wentian, transforming into a halo that seemed capable of shredding everything, wanting to forcefully extract Qin Wentian's soul from his body. However, Qin Wentian's body grew more and more majestic. Demonic qi towered up into the skies, breaking apart the halo. He inclined his head, staring at the heavens. At this moment, there were no more tears, only the coldness of despair. Roar! The demon's sword trembled violently as a shocking scene appeared on it. Over there, a great rock could be seen spreading its wings, soaring through the heavens and earth. With a flap of its wings, it could cover a distance of 1,000 miles. The demon's sword let out a shrill cry, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. This demon's sword actually had something to do with the primordial great rock? The great rock spread its wings, refusing to fly because the heavens were too low. Everyone thought of the reason why the demon's sword didn't appear throughout the ages was because it hated the fact that the heavens were too low. There was a legend in ancient times. There was a gigantic bird that resided in the mountains, unable to fly even after 1,000 years. When people asked what kind of bird it was and why it didn't fly, the bird replied, "I'm a great rock in the clouds. I only hate the heavens for being too low and unwilling to fly." The questioner sneered. If it was a great pung in the clouds, why didn't it have wings? How could it dare to mock the heavens for being low? When the bird heard this, it was enraged. It cried out in grief, and the mountains shook. Heaven and earth trembled. Boundless mountains were uprooted, and within them, a pair of heaven-shaking wings appeared. As it turned out, those boundless mountains were the wings of the giant bird. The great rock spread its wings and soared into the clouds, charging into the heavens and slamming into the heavens. It let out a mournful cry as it slammed into the heavens. In the end, the heavens couldn't be broken, and the great rock died with a mournful cry. It fell to the ground and transformed back into a mountain range. Now this sword was like a rock, hating the heavens for being too low. The demonic qi on Qin Wentian's body grew stronger and stronger. Gradually, the shadow of an enormous rock appeared on his body, with a wingspan of a few thousand meters. Demonic qi continued to pour down from the starry sky, converging on Qin Wentian, transforming into something corporeal. All of a sudden, Qin Wentian vanished. It disappeared. The scene in front of them was so shocking that it deeply stimulated everyone's heart. That 1,000-meter great rock abruptly opened its eyes. The coldness in its eyes was so bone-piercing that it caused people to feel a boundless chill. Abruptly, a long screech echoed out as the wings of the great rock spread out, spanning a distance of 3,000 meters. A raging wind gusted as demonic qi filled the entire Pill Emperor Hall. That great rock was transformed by Qin Wentian? The spectators only felt waves of shock rocking their hearts. They had never heard of such a situation before. How could Qin Wentian transform into a great rock? The demonic qi of heaven and earth descended upon his body. The aura of the great rock soared madly, and it was many times stronger compared to Qin Wentian. It actually broke through the middle 3 levels of Heavenly Dipper, breaking through to the upper 3 levels of Heavenly Dipper, gathering the demonic chi from the 8 directions, devouring the demonic chi from the starry skies, communicating with the demonic divinities of the 8 directions. Qin Wentian swallowed boundless amounts of demonic chi, accumulating a towering demonic chi. Did he transform into a demon? The hearts of the spectators couldn't help but tremble. This was too terrifying. This was the first time they saw someone transforming into a demon. In the great hall that towered into the skies, a white-robed silhouette stood there, staring down at everything. When he saw Qin Wentian transforming into a demon, a dazzling light flashed in his eyes. Demonic divinity sacrificial transformation. The ancient kingdom of Grand Xia used the vermilion bird as their totem, worshipping the vermilion bird demonic divinity. The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation was a supreme secret art that could transform one into a demonic divinity. However, according to what he knew, although this art existed, no one had ever succeeded in cultivating it. Why was this young man able to use the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation so easily? Qin Wentian, who was at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, could actually communicate with the demonic divinity by chanting the words of the ancient demons. Luohi's countenance was also filled with shock. She had never imagined that a puny little Qin Wentian, although he had the mandate of heaven, was still a mere Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Yet today, he was able to display his might in her Pill Emperor Hall, causing such a commotion. Only to see the astral energy from the few experts surrounding Qin Wentian gushing out frenziedly, landing on the stone pillar. The stone pillar shone with a resplendent light as a corona of light cascaded downwards, landing on the body of the great rock. An unparalleled might seemed as though it wanted to extract his soul from his body. The great rock inclined its head, howling madly. Demonic wind danced wildly in the air, its wings flapping violently. The silhouettes in the distance were all ruthlessly flung backwards. They couldn't even withstand the aftershocks. However, their gazes were still fixated on the terrifying silhouette of the great rock. 1,000 meters long great rock, with a wingspan of 3,000 meters. Was he really Qin Wentian in his human form? In that case, was Qin Wentian a human or a demonic beast? They only saw the sharp claws of the great rock acting like arms, firmly latching onto the demon's sword as it let out a frenzied screech. However, the demon's sword was similarly wailing in agony. However, even with the strength of the great rock, it had no way to control the demon's sword. The power radiating from it was even stronger than Qin Wentian in his human form. Qin Wentian had transformed into a great rock, yet the demon's sword hated the fact that the heavens were too low. The eyes of the great rock were incomparably cold, resisting the pain of the corona of light seizing away his soul. Abruptly, he dove downwards, directly using his body to pierce through the sword. Despite the toughness of his body, wherever the sword passed by, fresh blood splattered everywhere. An incomparably large gash appeared on the body of the great rock. A crack appeared on his body, and from that crack, boiling hot blood flowed out, dripping onto the demon's sword. Every drop of blood seemed to be boiling, and if all the blood that dripped onto the demon's sword dripped onto the ground, it would be enough to form a small pool of water. Madness, this is too crazy. The spectators were speechless when they saw Qin Wentian's actions. Not only did he transform into a great rock, he even tore apart his body, allowing the demon's sword to drink the demonic blood of the great rock. That gigantic body wrapped around the demon's sword, using his own blood to feed it. His wings closed as he stared coldly at the experts from the Pill Emperor Hall, as well as the towering ancient hall. His eyes flickered with a coldness that seemed to originate from the depths of hell. Kill him. The few vice leaders of the Pill Emperor Hall felt an intense sense of danger. However, the soul-severing formation was actually unable to extract Qin Wentian's soul. Right now his soul was incomparably stable. Rumble, the stone pillar soared up into the skies. The few of them directly launched their attacks, blasting out death imprints. As these death imprints blasted out, it felt as though the vitality of the heavens and earth was being sucked dry. This entire space was filled with a deathly stillness as the pressure bore down on the great rock. A raging wind gusted as the wings of the great rock spread open. A supreme sword light erupted forth, directly shattering the death imprints. After which, the stone pillar was reduced to dust under the might of the sword chi. Bzz. The great rock spread its wings and soared, traversing a distance of 10 million meters in the blink of an eye. The spectators couldn't even see the silhouette of the great rock, they only saw the fluttering of its wings. After which, they saw a gigantic sword pierce through the body of a peak-level heavenly dipper sovereign. The sharp talons of the great rock grabbed onto one end of the gigantic sword, as though the sword intent of the gigantic sword was connected to the demon sword. My will is the sword intent. The sword intent is my will. The other talon of the great rock directly swiped downwards. Instantly, the body of a peak-level heavenly dipper sovereign was directly shattered into pieces. Behind the great rock, the demon sword let out a shrill cry as its sword intent permeated the entire space, emitting a resplendent light that tore apart all the experts. The spectators who were far away continued retreating, wanting to retreat to a safe distance. At this moment, the eyes of the great rock were fixed on Luohi. Instantly, Luohi only felt her entire body turning cold. Just a single glance from the great rock was enough to cause despair to well up in her heart. Leaving aside the fact that she had the demon sword, even if she was separated from the demon sword, this great rock would still be able to easily tear her apart. After all, her cultivation base was only at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. Bzz. A raging wind gusted by. Luohi directly closed her eyes. How fast was the great rock? In the ancient legends, the great rock hated the fact that the heavens were too low and refused to fly. It soared up into the heavens, only to crash into the heavens and die. One could very well imagine how fast the ancient great rock was. Luohi knew that she wouldn't be able to dodge its attack. Vile creature. A cold voice abruptly rang out as the gigantic body of the great rock appeared before Luohi. However, it was blocked by a person. At the instant this person stood in front of Luohi, a constellation manifested in the air. The airspace above the Pill Emperor Hall transformed into a starry night sky. This constellation contained boundless might, and with a casual lift of his hand, he actually managed to block the attack of the great rock. A celestial phenomenon ascendant, a legendary realm. From afar, the spectators all stared at the constellation. Even the Pill Emperor himself had personally appeared. Luohi was the daughter of the Pill Emperor. If the Pill Emperor didn't appear, Luohi would definitely die. Nobody could have imagined that Qin Wentian would be able to do this. Incinerate. The white-robed figure coldly spat out. The constellation in the air enveloped the great rock, and in an instant, the entire body of the great rock was engulfed in flames of death. Bzz. A raging wind gusted by. The great rock soared up into the skies before swooping down again. Its gigantic body landed beside the demon sword, and its sharp talons directly grabbed hold of the demon sword as its cold eyes stared fixedly at the Pill Emperor. The great rock howled in anguish. Rumbling sounds echoed out as the demon sword was actually uprooted from the ground, hovering in the air. For the first time, the demon sword was uprooted from the ground. Die. The Pill Emperor flicked a finger at the great rock. Momentarily, the constellation in the sky manifested the flames of death, burning away the life of the great rock. So what if the great rock was a heavenly dipper sovereign when facing a celestial phenomenon ascendant? The great rock continued howling in anguish. It lifted the demon sword and soared through the air, ignoring the pain of being incinerated as it soared towards the great hall. Slowly, it descended from the skies, above the great hall. The demon sword was slowly lifted up. This scene caused the breathing of the spectators to halt. Vile beast, you dare? The Pill Emperor howled in rage. The light from the constellation grew even more terrifying. Yet the demon sword slashed down from the skies, as though it was fulfilling its promise. Today, as long as the Pill Emperor Hall didn't collapse, he wouldn't leave. Chapter 426. Seeing the great rock slashing down with the demon sword. The spectators from afar all felt their hearts pounding as they held their breaths. With this slash of his sword, even if he died, the Pill Emperor Hall would forever be nailed to the pillar of shame. This day would be recorded in the annals of Grand Xia's history. Countless silhouettes of the Pill Emperor Hall appeared. They either came from different locations or from the towering Great Hall. All of them stared dumbfoundedly at the silhouette of the great rock in the air. Their bodies were all trembling in fear. Who? A thunderous roar rang out. Abruptly, another constellation manifested in the air. This time around, the constellation seemed to symbolize death. Boundless death astral light cascaded down onto the great rock. Yet the eyes of the great rock were filled with an unyielding resolution. The great rock hated the heavens for being too low when it spread its wings, let alone the Pill Emperor Hall. The great rock let out a mournful cry. The sword followed suit. The 1,000-meter-long gigantic sword, containing an overwhelming sword intent, slashed down from the skies. Even celestial phenomenon ascendants wouldn't dare to block this attack head-on. Luohi stared at the descending sword as her countenance turned ashen. Suddenly, she was thinking, was her method of doing things right? If she had fought with her father, not allowing Mo Qingqing to become the pill body of the old ancestor, and not objecting to the relationship between her and the young man who transformed into a great rock, would the history of Grand Xia take a different direction? She didn't know. The impact she felt when she saw that sword slashing down was simply too overwhelming. Dragging the sword for 100,000 miles, using his blood to feed the demon sword, transforming into a great rock, using his body to feed the sword, wanting to cleave the Pill Emperor Hall apart. Yet all of this was accomplished by a young man at the Heavenly Dipper realm. He who had sunk into madness, no longer cared about the consequences. He didn't care about life or death. So what if he became the enemy of the entire Grand Xia? In Luohi's entire life, she had never met such a crazy person before. His obsession could shake the heavens. Naturally, other than shock, Luohi was filled with rage and killing intent. This matter had arisen because of her, and now, the Pill Emperor Hall was shamed. If Qin Wentian didn't die today, the Pill Emperor Hall would become the laughingstock of Grand Xia. How could the Pill Emperor in front of her not be shocked as well? Earlier when he sensed the might of the demon sword, he had already appeared. But he didn't expect the things that happened after that. The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation. Transforming into a primordial great rock. Using his blood as a sacrifice to the demon sword. If he knew this would happen, he, the Pill Emperor, would have disregarded his status and acted to subdue Qin Wentian. But now, it was already too late even if he wanted to subdue Qin Wentian. Not only that, it even alerted another old man from the Pill Emperor Hall, who was in closed-door seclusion at the peak of the Pill Emperor Hall. Pucci. The demon sword slashed down. The majestic Pill Emperor Hall shone with a resplendent light, as though there was a towering might blocking it. However, the demon sword transformed into a primordial great rock, possessing an aura capable of breaking the heavens, let alone a mere Pill Emperor Hall. A crisp cracking sound could be heard as the sword slashed down from the middle. The towering palace hall was split into two. It was actually split into two, from the clouds all the way to the bottom. Everything within it was destroyed. Many people in the surroundings of the Heaven Ascension Great Hall stared at the scene in shock. After which, a gust of sword wind gusted by, as soft sounds rang out. Numerous silhouettes were directly turned into dust by the sword wind, dissipating with the wind. They didn't even know how they died. A single sword slashed apart the Pill Emperor Hall, causing countless experts to fall. The spectators in the distance were all stifled, staring at the scene in front of them. Their eyes even forgot to move. The Pill Emperor Hall was cleaved apart, split into two. A single sword slashed into pieces. In the 9 continents of Grand Xia, the Pill Emperor Hall that was ranked within the top 5, the Pill Emperor Hall, was actually cleaved apart by a young man at the Heavenly Dipper realm in the form of a primordial great rock. It was unknown how much of a storm would this sword strike cause in Grand Xia. In the air, 2 constellations could be seen. One was the constellation of the Pill Emperor, while the other belonged to the ancient experts of the Pill Emperor Hall. When they saw the Pill Emperor Hall being split apart, their long robes fluttered in the wind. The killing intent in their eyes was incomparably terrifying. Die. That old man blasted out with a palm strike as a terrifying imprint of death descended from the heavens. His constellation also radiated a fearsome will of death. However, Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see it. He brandished his sword in front of him, blocking the attack of his opponent. His body was being scorched by the flames of death, and he was in extreme agony. However, it was as though he couldn't feel it at all. He continued moving forward, dragging the demon sword behind him as he advanced towards the forbidden ground. Everywhere the great rock passed by, sword intent would engulf the heavens and earth. The buildings and grand halls of the Pill Emperor Hall were all destroyed, and those who didn't manage to leave were all slain by the sword might. The Qin Wentian now no longer cared about anything. His huge eyes focused only on the front. The monstrous sword might gathered once again. The Pill Emperor and the old man from the Pill Emperor Hall appeared before Qin Wentian. Their eyes flickered with a terrifying coldness as a destructive might gushed forth from them. The eyes of the great rock stared at the two people in front of him. There wasn't the slightest bit of fear in his eyes. His body once again flew towards the sword. His healed body felt as though it was being sliced open again. Every drop of blood was boiling hot. Boom! The body of the great rock seemed to be on fire. That was the power of his bloodline burning. The terrifying aura of the great rock was rising rapidly, getting stronger and stronger. That aura was already at the peak of the Heavenly Dipper realm, and it seemed like it wanted to break through to the next realm. However, a Heavenly Dipper sovereign was still a Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Without sufficient comprehension, how could he step into the celestial phenomenon realm? The aura of the great rock reached its peak. His bloodline caused the screeching of the demon sword to intensify. On the other side, two celestial phenomenon ascendants gathered the power of their respective constellations. The Pill Emperor's body was covered in 9 colored flames of destruction, while the other celestial phenomenon ascendant condensed a true seal of life and death. The seal of life and death was one of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, and it had fallen into the hands of the Pill Emperor Hall. Now, in the hands of a celestial phenomenon ascendant, the death chi radiating from it was sufficient to destroy the heavens and earth, causing everything in the surroundings to turn black. The seal of life and death was a seal of life and death. If one wanted to live, one would live. If one wanted to die, they would die. Once the death seal was unleashed, it could steal the vitality of the heavens and earth. Even if it was the great rock in the clouds, if it was struck by it, it would die without a doubt. The spectators from afar were already numb to the sight of Qin Wentian transforming into a great rock, facing off against two celestial phenomenon ascendants. Everything that happened today would be something they would never forget for the rest of their lives. At this moment, a thought appeared in their minds. They didn't want Qin Wentian to die here. Now that he had transformed into a great rock, if he could survive this calamity, would he be able to break through the skies of Grand Xiao in the future? However, it was too difficult for Qin Wentian to survive. Two celestial phenomenon ascendants, existences that stood at the peak of Grand Xia, wanted to kill Qin Wentian. The seal of life and death, as well as the 9 colored flames of destruction, flew towards Qin Wentian. The destructive energy contained within them seemed to have already sucked away all the life force in this space. However, at this moment, the great rock let out a mournful cry. Its wings flapped violently as its body spun madly, transforming into a tornado. The sword danced along with it. Busy. The demon sword carried with it an unparalleled might as it was flung out by Qin Wentian. Everywhere it passed, the earth was torn asunder. With a thunderous boom, the seal of life and death was shattered, and the 9 colored flames were extinguished. The two ascendants of the Pill Emperor Hall instantly dodged. That demon sword passed right through them. It was unknown where it was heading to. Busy. A raging wind howled. The great rock that had transformed into a tornado vanished, leaving a trail of wind behind it as it sped through the space between the two ascendants. Not good. The Pill Emperor stared at the end of the demon sword as his countenance abruptly changed. Qin Wentian was actually flying towards the forbidden ground. They stepped out, vanishing in an instant. However, it was already too late. The speed of the demon sword was incomparably fast. It was flung out by Qin Wentian with all the strength he could muster. Everywhere it passed, the great hall would be destroyed. The ground would be torn apart, until it collided with the entrance to the forbidden ground. It was rumored that this entrance was the sacred ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. Only some of the more outstanding females from the Pill Emperor Hall would be able to enter. But at this moment, The entrance to the forbidden ground had already been broken apart. The demon's sword directly shattered the entrance and continued on its way, breaking through the clouds and shredding apart the aura of the sacred ground, directly piercing into the mountain rampart of the Mountain of Death. The mountain rampart continued to crumble as gigantic boulders rained down from the sky, burying the mountain below. A terrifying aura gushed forth from the bottom of the cliff, shattering the falling boulders into pieces. The two silhouettes as well as the great rock descended at the same time, their speed inconceivably fast. The great rock hovered above the cliff, its talons once again grabbing hold of the demon's sword. Its eyes were fixed on the ground below, staring at the bottom of the cliff. Over there, countless skeletons and corpses could be seen everywhere, covering the entire canyon. Over there were also some females. They were all so beautiful, yet they resembled walking corpses. Their aura was slowly being devoured by the skeletons below. Emo Chingching was there as well. The instant the eyes of the great rock landed on Emo Chingching, the coldness radiating from it was incomparably terrifying. So this is the sacred ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. So many beautiful females with outstanding talent are being used to rear evil skeletons. An extremely cold voice rang out from the mouth of the great rock. At this moment, it wanted nothing more than to destroy this so-called sacred ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. The voice of the great rock drifted through the air, drifting into the ears of those outside the Pill Emperor Hall. When they heard this, their hearts violently pounded. Indeed, at this moment, they could also sense an evil aura gushing forth from there. The Pill Emperor Hall used female disciples to rear evil skeletons? This discovery caused the bodies of many to involuntarily tremble. This was too terrifying. Staring at the majestic Pill Emperor Hall in front of them, the transcendent power of Grand Xia for thousands of years, the sacred ground of alchemy, a place revered by countless people, was actually used to rear evil skeletons? Not only that, Emo Chingching was sent there. The reason why Qin Wentian disregarded everything and rushed in was precisely because of Emo Chingching. So it turned out that the reason why the Pill Emperor Hall accepted Emo Chingching as their disciple, and why Luo he spent so much effort to nurture Emo Chingching, was because of this. The spectators from afar stared at Luo, he as though they were looking at a venomous witch. When they thought of that beautiful silhouette that could topple empires, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Such a transcendent power was the hegemon of the moon continent, and was revered by countless people. Was the truth behind all this so cruel? Luo he naturally felt the gazes of the spectators. Her countenance grew incredibly unsightly to behold. From today onwards, the reputation of the Pill Emperor Hall was completely ruined by that young man. Chapter 427. The Pill Emperor and that ancient expert all landed at the edge of the cliff. Right now, their countenances were incomparably unsightly to behold. Qin Wentian had actually disturbed the existence at the bottom of the cliff. Vile creature. A cold voice came directly from the bottom of the cliff. It was so cold that it seemed as if the temperature of the entire space had plummeted. The Pill Emperor and the ancient expert turned their gazes downwards, as deep respect could be seen flickering in their eyes. The two of them bowed. "Ancestor, please forgive us. A mere vile creature actually dared to disturb my cultivation. How are you all going to control the Pill Emperor Hall? Quickly settle this." That voice rang out once more, exuding an unexcelled aura. His voice rang out, echoing through the air. Those who were observing from afar also heard it, and they all seemed to have understood something. That skeleton at the bottom of the cliff was actually an ancestor of the Pill Emperor Hall. Could it be that the ancestor of the Pill Emperor Hall wanted to use some forbidden method to revive? Reviving was a great taboo of the heavens. Hence, the Pill Emperor Hall used Emo Chingching and the other outstanding disciples to nurture him, using the lives of so many people in exchange for his revival. Such a method was simply too cruel. However, for the sake of their ancestor, the Pill Emperor Hall would definitely be willing to do anything. Once this ancestor was revived, it was unknown what kind of storm would he cause in Grand Xia. The hearts of those from the Hua clan, Cheng clan, Star-Seizing Manor, and the other transcendent powers all trembled. The secrets of the Pill Emperor Hall had never been made known to outsiders. They had always wanted to uncover the secrets within, yet even the most outstanding disciples of the Pill Emperor Hall didn't know about it. Only those at the peak of the Pill Emperor Hall would know about it. Qingcheng. The eyes of Qin Wentian, who was in the form of a great rock, flickered with boundless coldness. He pulled out the demon sword and slammed it downwards, aiming for the bottom of the cliff. The whistling sword intent gushed forth, sweeping everything apart. However, one of the skeletons below seemed to have moved as a pair of evil eyes stared up at the sky. In an instant, numerous chains of darkness abruptly appeared in the center of the precipice. The demon sword slammed down, slamming into the chains. Cracking sounds rang out as cracks appeared on the chains, but they didn't shatter. Qin Wentian had already exhausted too much of his energy. In fact, even his blood was almost completely drained. Right now, the demon sword he controlled had no way to shake this terrifying skeleton. Wentian. Mo Qingqing inclined her head and stared at Qin Wentian, who was in the form of a great rock. Tears flowed unceasingly down her face. That skeleton was still absorbing her aura. Mo Qingqing couldn't move at all. Up in the sky, the King of Elixirs and the King of Elixirs slowly walked down. 9 colored flames fell from the sky and burned Qin Wentian's body. At the same time, a terrifying death seal slammed down and landed on the rock's huge body. The body of the great rock trembled violently as it unceasingly coughed out fresh blood, dripping onto the demon sword. The wings of the great rock could blot out the sun, yet it still couldn't withstand the attacks of a celestial phenomenon ascendant. But even so, Qin Wentian could still endure the pain. The only thing he couldn't endure was the fact that Mo Qingqing's essence was being absorbed by the skeleton. His ice-cold eyes were filled with despair, as well as tears. Dumbo, you have to live on well. You have to live on well. A smile that could topple empires suddenly appeared on Mo Qingqing's countenance. Although her tears flowed down, she was still smiling radiantly. Meeting you, I have no regrets in this life. It's enough. Mo Qingqing murmured. Her body began to burn up. In the ancient formation, the secret art you obtain should be the demonification art. I've also obtained a secret art that allows me to transform my entire life's worth of energy into a pill. Mo Qingqing smiled. I didn't want to use it because I knew that you would definitely forbid me from using it. But now I have no other choice. The essence in Mo Qingqing's body began to combust, and the skeleton below her began to move, devouring her essence at an even faster rate. However, it seemed as though it still had no way to stop Mo Qingqing. A skeleton crawled up from the ground and stretched out its arms, wanting to stop her. But Mo Qingqing merely opened her mouth and spat out a resplendent medicinal pill, instantly flying towards Qin Wentian. Dumbo, that's my heart. Mo Qingqing was still smiling as her body slowly collapsed onto the ground. Qin Wentian stared at the medicinal pill floating in front of him. That pill was in the shape of a heart. The skeleton's arms shot towards the sky. Qin Wentian opened his mouth and abruptly inhaled, sucking the pill into his mouth. However, he didn't swallow it, he merely held it in his mouth. Mo Qingqing's body slumped onto the stone platform, softly lying there. She was very quiet, with a smile on her face. It was as though she wanted to imprint the most beautiful moment of her into Qin Wentian's memory. Her long hair draped over the stone platform, and tears could be seen flowing down the corners of her smiling eyes. Although she had no regrets in this life. But how could she bear to leave? Dumbo. A thought appeared in Mo Qingqing's mind. Dumbo, I don't want to leave. I really don't want to. But you have to live well. This voice actually appeared in Qin Wentian's heart, as though it was transmitted through the medicinal pill in his mouth. She didn't want to leave. She still wanted to be together with him. But for him, she had no other choice. Roar! The great rock howled in grief as its body slammed into the sword. Fresh blood unceasingly flowed into the sword, disregarding everything else, disregarding its own life. The howls of grief continued unceasingly as the flames on its body continued to burn. The shadow of the great rock appeared within the sword as well. His sharp claws grabbed towards the demon sword. It was unknown where Qin Wentian got his strength from. A raging wind gusted by as he actually managed to pull the demon sword out of the ground. His silhouette instantly vanished from sight as he stabbed out with the sword towards that old antique in the air. The countenance of that old antique drastically changed. In the air, astral light cascaded downwards as he retreated while simultaneously blasting out countless life and death seals. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian didn't care about his own life. He only wanted to take his opponent's life. Bang bang bang, the ancient seals shattered unceasingly. It was unknown how terrifying the power of the gigantic sword was. Boundless sword intent lacerated the body of that old antique, as fresh blood splattered everywhere. Vile beast! That old antique roared in rage. A gigantic constellation appeared in his palm as he blasted it out. Boom! The demon sword collided with the constellation, causing the walls of the cliff to be torn apart. The two of them were forced backwards, and that old antique expert coughed out fresh blood from the impact. But at this moment, the Pill Emperor arrived. 9 colored flames enveloped the entire space, enveloping the great rock within. The great rock screeched in agony. He slashed out with his sword, causing the Pill Emperor to explosively retreat. He stood together with that old antique expert as he stared at the burning Qin Wentian. Die! The great rock howled in grief. He directly pierced the demon's sword into his own body, staining it with his own blood. Pucci! Pulling out the demon's sword, Qin Wentian stared at the two people in front of him. His body revolved madly as he abruptly flung out the demon's sword. The 1,000-meter-long demon's sword blazed with blood as it transformed into a beam of light that shook the heavens, shooting towards the two celestial phenomenon ascendants. The countenances of the two drastically changed. They stomped on the ground, causing the earth of the Pill Emperor Hall to tremble as they flew towards the gigantic demon sword. However, they had no way to block it. Boundless astral energy flowed into their palms. They blasted out with their palms as a resplendent constellation manifested before them, transforming into a heavenly rampart that blocked their path, colliding with the demon sword. Gotcha! Cracks appeared on the heavenly rampart as the demon sword pierced through it. Sword might gushed out, lacerating the bodies of the two ascendants. With a thunderous boom, the heavenly rampart was completely shattered, but the demon sword continued forward. Scram! The Pill Emperor and the old antique expert didn't even dare to split apart. Pucci! The two of them coughed out mouthfuls of blood as they were blasted through the air, slamming heavily into the ground. But even so, they managed to block the momentum of the demon sword. Boom! The demon sword pierced into the ground as the sword intent lacerated their bodies, causing their blood to splatter unceasingly. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Two terrifying existences at the celestial phenomenon realm were in such a miserable state. Their auras fluctuated wildly, and they were so heavily injured that they couldn't even stand up. Their gazes once again turned to Qin Wentian. Right now, Qin Wentian was already covered in blood, and was still being burned by the flames. His 1,000-meter-long body was enduring an indescribable pain, but what he felt was even more heartache. With a thunderous boom, the great rock collapsed onto the ground. Its gigantic eyes stared up at the skies as it spat out a medicinal pill. It still refused to swallow it. How could it swallow Qingqing's life? How could it do this? Tears appeared in its eyes once again. Hate that he didn't have the strength to save Qingqing. Hate that he still couldn't kill the Pill Emperor, couldn't destroy the Pill Emperor Hall. Go kill him. The Pill Emperor lay on the ground, swallowing a medicinal pill as he coldly commanded. Only now did the experts from the Pill Emperor Hall regain their senses. They were all extremely powerful characters in Grand Xia, yet they were all stunned into a daze by the battle earlier. At this moment, upon hearing the Pill Emperor's command, they all stepped out, moving towards the great rock lying on the ground. Qin Wentian had transformed into a great rock. If they didn't kill him today, the Pill Emperor Hall would be completely wiped from the map of Grand Xia in the future. But at this moment, an intense spatial fluctuation gushed over. A flawlessly beautiful silhouette appeared beside the great rock. This silhouette was akin to a celestial maiden, abruptly appearing. With a wave of her hand, an ice-cold snow lotus landed on Qin Wentian's body, extinguishing the flames on his body. She walked to the side of the great rock, and when she saw the eyes of the great rock staring at her, she didn't know what to feel in her heart. Qing Wentian mumbled. Before he died he saw Qing once again. Only to see that Qing didn't say anything. Her hands folded into ancient seals as a fearsome spatial fluctuation gushed forth from her. Her long hair fluttered in the wind as blood seeped out from the corners of her mouth. Unseal. A calm voice rang out. Qing Er's body trembled unceasingly as terrifying rumbling sounds echoed out. It was as though there was a terrifying existence piercing through her body, causing her to cough out a mouthful of blood. She coughed out a total of 9 mouthfuls of blood. The experts in the surroundings rushed over, yet they were all obstructed by a formless spatial fluctuation. Qing walked to the side of Qin Wentian, placing her palms on his body. Spatial stripping. A fearsome spatial energy swept out. The flames on Qin Wentian's body were forcibly stripped away. She walked to the lower abdomen of Qin Wentian. Her silhouette akin to that of a celestial maiden squatted down and lifted the great rock onto her back. This scene ruthlessly impacted the hearts and souls of the spectators. To think that such a beautiful woman would actually appear, using her delicate body to carry the dying great rock on her back. Trying to escape? A cold intent drifted over from the bottom of the precipice, only to see a sinister arm stretching out unceasingly, grabbing towards Qing. The spatial energy around Qing shattered as she coughed out another mouthful of blood, yet she still continued to carry the great rock on her back. In the air the sound of a sigh could be heard, after which, a cracking sound rang out as the skeletal arm directly broke apart. A silhouette with his hands clasped behind his back descended from the skies, hovering in the air above the precipice. Below the precipice, more skeletal arms stretched out unceasingly. However, as the silhouette took a step forward, the sounds of shattering rang out unceasingly. Those skeletal arms were all reduced to dust, causing the entire precipice to tremble. This silhouette had his hands clasped behind his back, yet his gaze was fixed on Qin Wentian, who was on Qing Er's back. In his eyes there was a boundless gentleness, as though he was looking at his own kin. Dragging the demon sword for 100,000 miles, ascending the Pill Emperor Hall alone, sacrificing his blood to the demon sword, transforming into a great rock. Such spirit, it doesn't lose out to you in the past. That silhouette stared at the skies as he sighed in his heart. It was as though there was a deep longing in his heart. His gaze then turned to the great rock, as the gentleness in his eyes seemed to be able to melt everything. Chapter 428. It had been over 20 years. The infant that once lay in his embrace had now, for the sake of the obsession in his heart, disregarding life and death, dragged the sword for 100,000 miles, all the way to the Pill Emperor Hall. What more could he ask for? Staring at the great demonic rock, the countenance of that mysterious figure was still as gentle as ever, filled with deep emotions. He really wanted to act, but he had once promised that he would never act for him. His life had to be walked by himself. Only then would he be able to rely on his own strength to prop up the heavens. Growing up under their protection, when he was weak, he would always think of the protection of others, and not to prop up the heavens for them. In the past, just how exceptional was his spirit? How could his children be mediocre? How could they grow up under the wings of others? Today, when he heard that the mysterious figure dragged the sword for 100,000 miles, wanting to enter the Pill Emperor Hall, he came here to take a look. Finally, he saw the shadow of that mysterious figure in that infant. He was happy, gratified. There were too many trials and tribulations waiting for this child. He knew what kind of storms he would experience. Hence there were many things that he had to face step by step. Even if he died, he had to face it alone. The path of life was long, and today, he had almost died in the Pill Emperor Hall. But wasn't this also a beginning, the beginning of a rebirth from the ashes? However, although this mysterious figure stood there, it was as though no one could sense his existence. The gazes of everyone were attracted by Qing and the great rock. He was like a passerby, and the only one who noticed his existence was the skeletal remains at the bottom of the cliff. More skeletons shattered the cliff and broke through the ground, grabbing at the mysterious man. However, at that moment he slowly turned his gaze and looked at the ground below. With just a single glance, he looked at one of the caves. His deep gaze was filled with cold flames, only to see him slowly walking down the cliff. Every step he took caused the entire cliff to tremble. It was as though this cliff was being enveloped by a mysterious rhythm. Pung! With a soft sound, the cliff seemed to fall downwards. The bones all turned into dust in the air. The figure was still standing with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at a cave abode. His eyes were like sharp swords, and there seemed to be a terrifying rhythm in the cave abode. Boom! Another light sound rang out as the entire cavern crumbled into pieces. Over there, an indistinct silhouette appeared. This silhouette was as handsome as a demon, and actually resembled a young man. His skin was sparkling and translucent, but his eyes were extremely terrifying. He inclined his head and stared at the silhouette in the air as he coldly asked, "Who are you?" As the sound of his voice faded, terrifying chains appeared from the cliff and locked onto the mysterious figure. The terrifying chains wrapped around the mysterious figure's body, and the terrifying evil fire of death started burning. However, the other party continued to slowly descend. He stood with his hands behind his back, ignoring the burning of the flames. Crisp cracking sounds rang out. The chains were broken. The flames continued to burn his body, but they couldn't move his body in the slightest. In the air, a resplendent constellation appeared. Not only did it envelop the cliff, it enveloped the entire Pill Emperor Hall as well. The vast Pill Emperor Hall seemed to be isolated from the outside world. The spectators outside couldn't see what was happening within the Pill Emperor Hall. What's going on? Another constellation appeared. The spectators inclined their heads, their countenances filled with shock. The two paragon-level characters of the Pill Emperor Hall, the celestial phenomenon Ascendant Pill Emperor, as well as an ancient expert, were all injured. Where did this constellation come from? Those from the Chun clan, Hua clan, Star-Seizing Manor, and the other major powers had long fled the vicinity of the Pill Emperor Hall, but right now they couldn't see anything. Just now, there seemed to be a faintly discernible supreme might permeating the air. They saw a mysterious figure floating above the cliff. He simply stood there, as though he didn't exist. He stood with his hands behind his back, as though he was carrying the entire sky on his back. Who was this person? Why did he come here? Nobody knew. Even Qin Wentian and Qing didn't know. Right now, Qin Wentian's consciousness was already blurry. Qing was still carrying Qin Wentian on her back. Her beautiful eyes stared at the constellation in the air as a powerful spatial energy enveloped both her and Qin Wentian. A spatial tempest gusted up. At this moment, she only wanted to bring Qin Wentian away from this place of trouble. The intense spatial fluctuations were directly broken apart. Qing discovered that this space had already been sealed by the constellation in the sky. Even if she used spatial teleportation, she wouldn't be able to leave this place. Cold eyes stared at the sky. She seemed to be extremely angry. "Little doll, you are not bad at all." A voice rang out, ringing out in Qing's ears. She was the only one who could hear it. Qing furrowed her brows, after which she stared at the constellation in the air. A lazy silhouette appeared there, casually staring at everything below. He didn't do anything, he merely used the incomparably powerful energy of his constellation to seal the entire Pill Emperor Hall. Who is it? The countenances of the Pill Emperor and that ancient expert turned ashen. They stared at the blurry silhouette in the sky. Right now, they were all heavily injured, and the power of their constellations was being suppressed. They had never imagined that the Pill Emperor Hall would have such a gathering of geniuses today. Other than them, there were actually other terrifying celestial phenomenon ascendants here. Why did they come here? No one replied. The silhouette in the sky directly ignored the question of the Pill Emperor. On the other side of the cliff, the demonic young man also saw the constellation in the sky. His countenance grew incredibly unsightly as he asked, "You still have helpers?" The silhouette in the air slowly descended onto the stone platform. Standing right on the platform Mo Qingqing was on. He stared at the silhouette of the young man in front of him, as an unexcelled in the world could be seen in his eyes. "Helpers? When you were at your peak condition, killing you was as easy as flipping my palm. Let alone today, when you were on the brink of death, You revived. Only to see that mysterious silhouette slowly stretching out his palm. The heavens and earth, as well as the cliff, all of them were trembling violently. A supreme power seemed to be controlling the pulse of the entire heavens and earth, sealing the spiritual chi of the 10 Directions mountain for you to absorb. Shatter it, destroy. He clenched his hand into a fist, and a shocking scene unfolded. The entire cliff seemed to collapse, and then explode, transforming into powder and dust. This scene caused the countenance of that young man to turn ashen. He turned his gaze towards the distance, only to see that within the cliff, there were 81 chains that were linked together, emitting cracking sounds unceasingly. Finally, a crisp sound rang out as the chains broke apart at the same time. Everything was turned into dust. Nothing could escape the might of that single clench of his fist. If the Pill Emperor had this level of strength, he only needed to clench his fist, and even if Qin Wentian could control the demon sword, he would still be turned into dust in an instant. There was no way for Qin Wentian to defend against such a level of power. The demonic young man's countenance turned ashen. With a stomp of his foot, the ground beneath him crumbled as boundless energy blasted towards the mysterious silhouette. However, his body actually shot up into the air, wanting to leave this place. Do you think you can escape? That mysterious silhouette clenched his fist. Instantly, the body of the demonic young man shattered into pieces, transforming into a pile of bones. This pile of bones was still frenziedly fleeing, containing a terrifying evil energy within. Destroy. That mysterious silhouette waved his hand in the air. Crisp cracking sounds rang out as screams of misery rang out. That pile of bones shattered. Yet it didn't die and continued to flee in all directions. In the air, a constellation manifested. Resplendent astral light cascaded downwards, landing on that pile of bones. In that space, everything was destroyed under the radiance of the constellation. Every inch of that pile of bones was turned into dust, disintegrated into nothingness. The old ancestor of the Pill Emperor Hall had racked his brains, wanting to be reborn through a skeleton. But now, because of Qin Wentian's presence in the Pill Emperor Hall, he had completely turned into dust, vanishing from this world. That mysterious silhouette didn't leave after killing his opponent. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he flicked his sleeves, instantly destroying all the evil formations in this area. After that, he slowly turned, staring at the beautiful silhouette lying on the ground. Child, it's been hard on you. Although this silhouette was a peak-level expert, the gaze in his eyes when he looked at Mo Qingqing was also incomparably gentle. He had personally witnessed everything that happened here from the air. He knew that Qin Wentian dragged the sword 10,000 miles to the Pill Emperor Hall for the sake of this girl. And this girl was also willing to give up everything for him. Before she spat out the pill, there was a look of deep love in her eyes. Who could understand this? She didn't want to die, she didn't want to leave. But she had no other choice. The pill is here. That person inclined his head as he calmly spoke. Instantly, a raging wind gusted by as another silhouette walked over. This was none other than the silhouette on the constellation. He held a pill in his hands as he slowly descended in front of Mo Qingqing. This pill was condensed from the essence and chi of Mo Qingqing's life. It contained her heart. You are both good girls. That silhouette placed the pill in front of Mo Qingqing. After which, the pill entered Mo Qingqing's mouth. His palms blasted out as the pill transformed into boundless spirit chi that permeated into Mo Qingqing's body. Since you have treated him like this, we won't let you down. However, in this life of his, he will definitely be able to shake the heavens and earth. If you want to be his wife, you have to have a meteoric rise as well. That mysterious silhouette murmured. After which, he turned his gaze onto the silhouette that arrived later. You, send her into the Green Cloud sect. This Pill Emperor Hall is not worthy of this child. Right, it's just that it has been tough on the two of them. That silhouette nodded his head lightly. With a wave of his hand, he lifted Mo Qingqing up as he soared up into the skies. After which, that mysterious silhouette inclined his head and stared at the skies. His body slowly floated up into the air. An instant later he appeared in the air above the precipice, staring at the silhouette of Qing, who was still carrying the great rock on her back. His eyes were still filled with gentleness. Good fellow, two such good children actually treat you so well. You are even more blessed compared to your father. In the future, don't let them down. That silhouette murmured. A warm smile could be seen on his face as his eyes flickered with traces of reminiscence. As he laughed, he took a step forwards, and in an instant, the entire Pill Emperor Hall trembled from the force of his footsteps. Chapter 429. As the mysterious silhouette walked forward, the entire Pill Emperor Hall trembled unceasingly, as though there was a mysterious rhythm to it. It was as though as long as he willed it, with just a single thought, he would be able to destroy this transcendent power that had existed for so many years. That mysterious silhouette slowly walked forward, and with every step he took, cracks would appear on the ground. Shattered pieces of bluestone floated in the air, right in front of that mysterious silhouette. Every step he took was the same. At this moment, the hearts of the spectators in the Pill Emperor Hall pounded in tandem with his footsteps. It was as though as long as he willed it, he could shatter the hearts of the spectators with a single step. Such a feeling was incomparably wondrous, inconceivable to those who heard it. How could there be such a terrifying character in the world? But right now the spectators all felt the same way. This mysterious silhouette was undoubtedly a terrifying existence among celestial phenomenon ascendants, and was several times stronger compared to the Pill Emperor. As long as he willed it, he could easily slay the Pill Emperor. Such a character actually appeared in the Pill Emperor Hall, sealing this entire space. Sir, who might you be? The Pill Emperor and the other two celestial phenomenon ascendants stabilized their auras as they stood up, staring at the mysterious silhouette ahead. Their eyes were filled with an intense sense of wariness. Even when facing against Qin Wentian, who wielded the demon sword, they only felt that Qin Wentian was akin to a demon, but they were still confident that they could deal with him. However, the person in front of them gave them a feeling that it was impossible for them to contend against him. If they clashed head-on, there would be no hope at all. They would be easily suppressed. Who am I? Are you even qualified to ask? That mysterious silhouette continued walking forward, abruptly waving his hands. The Pill Emperor only felt an immense force slamming into his body, causing him to groan in misery as he coughed out a mouthful of blood, his countenance pale white. He inclined his head and stared at the mysterious silhouette, his eyes flashing with rage. He was a lofty Pill Emperor. That mysterious silhouette frowned when he saw the expression on the Pill Emperor's face. He took another step forward as an even stronger pulsating pressure bore down on the entire space. His foot stomped on the ground. This stomp felt like he was stomping on the King of Pill's heart. A loud explosion could be heard as his face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. He almost fell to his knees, coughing out mouthfuls of blood. That silhouette didn't say anything. He only used his heart to tell the Dan King what was arrogance. Showing such an arrogant expression in front of him, he the Dan King wasn't worthy. Another one stepped out. Boom. The boundless pulsating energy once again landed on Dan King's body. His body was directly sent flying, and he continuously vomited blood. He was squatting on the ground, his face was completely devoid of blood. However, his heart was extremely tense, because he could clearly feel that the pulsating energy was about to descend upon him again. As long as his opponent took a step forward, he would be injured again. This feeling of helplessness made him despair. Qin Wentian inclined his head, staring at the mysterious silhouette. Ever since the destruction of the ancient Grand Xia Empire, how could there still be such a terrifying existence? Had they been hiding in dynasty all along? The lofty Dan King couldn't even muster the slightest bit of thoughts of resistance. He didn't even dare to look into the eyes of the mysterious silhouette. He was afraid that if he did, he would incur the dissatisfaction of the mysterious silhouette. Another step would trample on his heart. Even the lofty Dan King of the Pill Emperor Hall was in such a sorry state, let alone the others. They had no way to describe their emotions at this moment. They could only stare dumbly at the scene unfolding before their eyes. What happened today had toppled their understanding of the world. The Pill Emperor, who was rarely seen during normal times, was actually crushed into dregs. He didn't even have the strength to resist. Although the Pill Emperor was injured, Even if the Pill Emperor was at his peak condition, the result would still be the same. They were all very clear of this point. As for the other ancient ascendant, he didn't even have the courage to resist. Such a character actually came to the Pill Emperor Hall. Who was he here for? Luohi's breathing was ragged. She stared dumbfoundedly at her father, the Pill Emperor, before shifting her gaze onto that mysterious and invincible existence. She discovered that the movements of the mysterious silhouette had halted. Coincidentally, the silhouette stopped beside the great rock Qin Wentian had transformed into. That silhouette slowly turned his gaze onto the great rock. At this moment, the great rock Qin Wentian had transformed into had already fainted due to his heavy injuries. Qing from the start till the end, had her back facing the mysterious silhouette, not saying a single word. She didn't like to talk, she had always been like this. But her actions were always more concise and powerful than her words. Although the mysterious silhouette before her eyes was extremely powerful, Qing gaze was as cold as ever. She stared icily at the mysterious silhouette, as though no one would be able to get close to her. A bitter smile involuntarily appeared on the mysterious silhouette's face when he saw the expression on Qing face. However, although the smile was bitter, it was also warm. This little doll was truly cold. I know you're proficient in the Tao of space. It's my fault for being meddlesome and obstructing you from leaving. The mysterious silhouette gently laughed. I won't act to help him. This is the promise I made to his father. There's no need for you to tell him about what happened today. He has to walk his own path. By interfering today, I've already broken my promise. In the future, he will still be himself. Before he reaches a certain realm, I won't appear before him. The mysterious silhouette slowly spoke. After which, he pointed his finger at the heavens as a hole appeared in the constellation. Go. I believe you can take good care of him. That person continued. Qing's gaze was cold. After which, she turned her head as spatial energy enveloped her, and the great rock within. However, at this moment, she turned her head back and glanced at the mysterious silhouette. She was still as cold as ever, yet she still spoke. Thank you. As the sound of her voice faded, a powerful spatial fluctuation erupted. Together with the great rock, she directly vanished without a trace. A bitter smile appeared on the mysterious silhouette's face when he saw this scene. This girl was truly cold. Even the word thank you was so cold. However, why didn't this coldness make him feel disgusted? On the contrary, it made him feel that she was cute. Maybe in his heart, he had already treated Qing as a junior. But of course, even if it wasn't him, no one would be angry when facing a celestial maiden like Qing. His gaze shifted over, causing the hearts of those from the Pill Emperor Hall to pound as their countenances turned as pale as paper. The promise he made to Qin Wentian's father? This mysterious silhouette really came here for Qin Wentian. This person actually knew Qin Wentian's father. Luohi didn't know what she was feeling in her heart. Did Qin Wentian really have no background? Maybe his background was so terrifying that even the Pill Emperor Hall didn't dare to imagine it. Luohi suddenly discovered that not only was she wrong beyond reason. She almost had the chance to change the fate of the Pill Emperor Hall. Do any of you know who he is? That silhouette was still as carefree as ever. His body floated in the air as he stared down at the crowd with disdain. The him now was completely different from the him when he was facing Qing. When he was facing Qing, he was as gentle as an elder. But at this moment, he was unexcelled in the world, standing with his hands clasped behind his back. The entire Pill Emperor Hall was nothing in his eyes. He asked, do any of you know who he is? This he was naturally referring to Qin Wentian. Naturally, they didn't know. At this moment, they were all guessing that Qin Wentian might be the son of an old friend of the mysterious silhouette. However, the voice of the mysterious silhouette caused their hearts to tremble as their bodies trembled uncontrollably. He is my young master. The silhouette of this mysterious silhouette was extremely light. So light that if one didn't pay close attention, they wouldn't be able to hear it. But this casual voice was like a bolt of lightning striking down from a clear sky. Qin Wentian was his young master. What sort of status was this? Being addressed as young master. One could very well imagine what sort of status Qin Wentian's father had. Such an expert was a terrifying existence that could look down on the entire Pill Emperor Hall. He stood there, unexcelled in the world, disdainfully looking down on the people of the Pill Emperor Hall. Yet he referred to Qin Wentian as his young master. And before this, when Qin Wentian ascended to the Pill Emperor Hall alone, he was completely disregarded by them. Despite his outstanding talent, he wasn't given sufficient attention. Why? Because Qin Wentian didn't have a powerful background. They felt that everything that belonged to Qin Wentian could be snatched away by them. And a fallen genius wasn't a true genius. As for the Pill Emperor Hall, they were lofty, who would dare to question them? But reality was just so shocking. The things that happened in a single day felt as long as a lifetime, enough to be engraved in one's mind. Luohi's eyes turned sluggish as she stared dumbfoundedly at that powerful silhouette. He referred to Qin Wentian as young master. And she originally had a chance to make Qin Wentian her junior, becoming the lover of her disciple. Not only did she ruin such an opportunity, she even caused Qin Wentian to completely stand against her. Such a feeling, no one would be able to understand it. A sense of terror enveloped the entire Pill Emperor Hall. The reason why Qin Wentian ended up in such a miserable state today was undoubtedly because of the Pill Emperor Hall. In that case, how would this person deal with the Pill Emperor Hall? As though he could sense their fear, that mysterious expert inclined his head and stared at the skies. It was as though in his eyes, the Pill Emperor Hall didn't exist at all. He was filled with disdain, disdainful of the Pill Emperor Hall. "I won't kill you all." That mysterious expert spoke once more, causing everyone to heave a sigh of relief. However, if the matters today were to be leaked out, I dare to guarantee that the Pill Emperor Hall would be annihilated from the face of Grand Xia, completely erased from the face of Grand Xia. That expert spoke once more, his words causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. Naturally, they wouldn't doubt the strength of this mysterious expert. As for your lives, that is the path he should walk. I won't walk it in his place. For the next period of time, you all will have to spend it in torment, waiting for the revenge of the Pill Emperor Hall. That mysterious expert continued soaring up into the skies, his gaze fixed onto the demon sword embedded in the center of the Pill Emperor Hall. The demon sword shall remain here. When he descends once more and plucks out the demon sword, that day shall be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. The song of victory belonging to him shall also be played. As the sound of his voice faded away, the constellations in the Pill Emperor Hall dissipated in an instant. When they inclined their heads again, that silhouette had already vanished. Only that unexcelled figure was left behind, unable to be erased from their hearts. That final voice he left behind reverberated for a very long time within the Pill Emperor Hall, resounding in the hearts of everyone. When he descends once more and plucks out the demon sword, that day shall be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. The song of victory belonging to him shall also be played. Chapter 430. The Pill Emperor Hall, one of the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. It was the king of the Moon Continent, a power with a celestial phenomenon ascendant as its base. In the Grand Xia Empire, this place was considered a sacred ground for alchemy, and was worshipped by countless people. Those from the Pill Emperor Hall were all lofty existences, standing at the top of the 99 steps, gazing down disdainfully at the masses. In the Moon Continent, when they moved about, they would always have their heads inclined upwards. It was always others who stared up at them from the ground. But today, at this moment, those who were still alive in the Pill Emperor Hall were all inclined their heads upwards, staring at the disappearing constellation in the air. The sunlight cascaded downwards, yet their heads were still inclined upwards, as though they were in a daze. Their hearts were still pounding furiously. Earlier, everything that happened in the Pill Emperor Hall seemed very short, but to them, it felt like an eternity, so long that it would leave a mark in their hearts for the rest of their lives. Even for the Pill Emperor, his heart was in a mess right now. His gaze was no longer as spirited as before. He still remembered back then when he walked down from the majestic hall, how imposing and unexcelled he was, exuding the aura of the number one character in this world. But now, his brows were tightly furrowed, and his robes were tattered, stained with traces of blood. Today, the supreme existence of the Pill Emperor Hall finally understood what it meant by "there's always someone stronger than the heavens." Qin Wentian had left him an unforgettable experience. And at this moment, those spectating from afar were all filled with bewilderment and shock as they stared at the ancient Great Hall. The demon sword was still there, embedded into the Pill Emperor Hall. Sword intent permeated the air. And as for the towering Great Hall, it had long been split into two by the demon sword. Even the rocks on the ground had been shattered. How was this still the famous Pill Emperor Hall? It no longer exuded any sense of majesty at all. Only a sense of destruction could be felt. What happened just now? The hearts of the spectators pounded. They saw the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall, including the Pill Emperor, staring dumbfoundedly at the heavens. When the constellation enveloped the Pill Emperor Hall, who was it that descended? And who was it that used the power of the constellation to seal the entire Great Hall within? Where's Qin Wentian? It was at this time that they discovered to their astonishment that Qin Wentian, who had transformed into a rock, had actually disappeared. The rock had a wingspan of 3,000 meters. With such a huge body, even if it had fallen, its corpse should still be there. It was impossible for it to vanish into thin air. Even the cliff within the forbidden ground seemed to have been destroyed. How is Mo Qingcheng? There were countless doubts in the hearts of the crowd, but no one could clear them up. Senior. At this moment, the experts of the Hua clan arrived at the entrance of the Pill Emperor Hall, bowing to the Pill Emperor. This person was a king of elixirs. They naturally had to be respectful. However, at this moment, they only saw the king of elixirs turning around and glancing at them. His eyes were devoid of life, like an old man in his twilight years. Furthermore, his eyes were filled with coldness. "Senior, may I ask what's going on?" someone asked. Scram! A thunderous roar rang out. The countenance of that person instantly paled. The Pill Emperor waved his hands as a terrifying flame energy blasted towards that person. The coldness in the eyes of the Pill Emperor caused that person to feel stifled. "Senior." The countenances of those from the Hua clan all changed. They didn't know what they had done to anger the Pill Emperor. From today onwards, the Pill Emperor Hall shall enter closed-door seclusion, severing all grudges with the external world. Nobody is allowed to enter the Pill Emperor Hall for an indefinite period of time. The Pill Emperor's voice was ice-cold as he continued. "Now all of you are to leave within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn." As the sound of his voice faded, the Pill Emperor waved his hands as a raging wind gusted by, as a stifling pressure bore down on everyone. The countenances of those from the Hua clan, Wang clan, Star-Seizing Manor, and the other transcendent powers were all incredibly unsightly to behold. What exactly happened? Why would the Pill Emperor give such an order? The Pill Emperor Hall shall enter closed-door seclusion, severing all grudges with the external world for an indefinite period of time. Such an order caused countless people to be in an uproar. They knew that this definitely had something to do with what happened after the Pill Emperor Hall's constellation enveloped the Pill Emperor Hall. Because even if the Pill Emperor didn't say it, the others wouldn't dare to say it as well. The Pill Emperor gave such an order because of the words left behind by that supreme expert. What happened today was not to be leaked to the outside world. Once it was leaked, the Pill Emperor Hall would be purged from the Pill Emperor Hall. This meant that for those who knew of this matter, they had to be firmly controlled and confined within the Pill Emperor Hall. He had no choice but to give such an order. He didn't know who would flee the Pill Emperor Hall out of fear and divulge this secret. As the Pill Emperor, he naturally wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. The experts from the Pill Emperor Hall naturally understood the reason why the Pill Emperor gave such an order. Earlier, many thoughts flashed through their minds, and there were indeed some who wanted to flee. After offending such a terrifying character, they had no way to resist. They had no ability to resist. That was akin to a gigantic boulder pressing down on them, although it didn't directly crush them to death. But behind them, there was still a demon-level existence like Qin Wentian. One day, he would descend upon the Pill Emperor Hall and punish them for all the hatred they had for him. None of them had the ability to resist. None of them dared to pursue and kill Qin Wentian. They could only wait. Wait for the end of the world to descend. This was simply a dead knot. Qin Wentian didn't directly destroy the Pill Emperor Hall, yet he had cast a shadow over the entire Pill Emperor Hall. The hearts of everyone present felt as though there was a weight of 10,000 jin weighing down on them. And the person with the heaviest guts was none other than Luo He. Feeling the cold gazes of the crowd, Luo He only felt her entire body turning cold. Was this really her fault? Naturally not entirely. For the sake of their ancestor, anyone would be willing to sacrifice a Qin Wentian, a Mo Qingcheng. But on the surface she was the mastermind. She was the one who ignited the flames of hatred in Qin Wentian's heart, causing him to slaughter his way into the Pill Emperor Hall. The Pill Emperor also turned his gaze onto Luo He. He wanted to punish Luo He, but now that things have come to this, what use was punishment? Everything they had done to Qin Wentian, that crazy young man was willing to disregard everything, dragging the sword for 100,000 miles. Would the young man who had transformed into a demon in the Pill Emperor Hall be able to forgive them for what they had done to Mo Qingcheng? This hatred could only be washed away with fresh blood. Staring at the towering demon sword, this demon sword was like a pillar of humiliation to the Pill Emperor Hall. From now on, it would always be there, waiting for its owner to come and pluck it out from the ground, destroying this ancient great hall. How cruel was this reality? It was as cruel as what they did to Qin Wentian today. At that time, Qin Wentian had no strength to resist. He could only fight with his life on the line. The others also cast a deep glance at the demon's sword before turning and departing the area. How would they dare to refuse the Pill Emperor's banishment? It was just that the doubts in their hearts couldn't be resolved. Zhong Yi was also among the crowd. He had been observing everything that Qin Wentian had done. With regards to the successor of the Azure Emperor, today's events had truly shocked him. When he saw how helpless Qin Wentian was, his heart was filled with anxiety. But with a celestial phenomenon ascendant acting, he didn't even have the qualifications to participate. If he acted to save Qin Wentian, other than sending himself to death, there was no other use. At this moment, the image of that wild and violent demonified silhouette was still resounding in his mind. Was he still there? Zhong Yi had a feeling that Qin Wentian was definitely still alive. If not, the Pill Emperor Hall wouldn't have acted in such a manner. Perhaps there was a secret behind that young man that he didn't know about. Very swiftly, everyone left, bringing along boundless bewilderment as they returned to their respective halls. The Pill Emperor Hall was still as silent as ever. They only stared at the Pill Emperor, not daring to speak. Pressure. There was only pressure in the air. Without my command, no one is allowed to take a single step out of the Pill Emperor Hall. The Pill Emperor slowly spoke. After which, he lifted his feet and walked towards the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall, that was split into two. Nobody knew what he was thinking in his heart at this moment. Between a single thought. Before my father died, he told me these 4 words. Only now did I truly comprehend the meaning behind it. What does it mean by between a single thought? The Pill Emperor murmured, his back view filled with the vicissitudes of time. With a single thought, the reputation of the Pill Emperor Hall was destroyed. From the height of glory to the point of utter destruction. It actually happened in the span of a single thought. Luo He's body trembled violently. That voice had moved her so intensely. Wasn't all of this caused by a single thought of hers? Qingcheng. At this moment, Luo He thought of her outstanding disciple, Mo Qingcheng. Yet, she had single-handedly sent her disciple to her grave. The crowd from the star-seizing manor slowly departed. Their brows were all tightly furrowed. Up ahead, a middle-aged man clad in robes made of constellations spoke. What do you think of the matter today? The Pill Emperor Hall seems to have suffered a great loss this time. I suspect that Qin Wentian was rescued by someone else. Another person replied, his words causing the heart of the person who asked the question to shudder. He then murmured, being able to rescue someone from the clutches of the Pill Emperor, heavily injuring 2 celestial phenomenon ascendants and even retreating safely. What level of strength does he have? He should be able to kill many experts from the Pill Emperor Hall, right? Why didn't he do so? The person who spoke earlier frowned as he shook his head. He had no way to explain this. If there really was such a character, why didn't he act against those from the Pill Emperor Hall? They couldn't understand. Maybe Qin Wentian had already fallen. No matter what, the hatred between us and Qin Wentian isn't too great. In the future, if he's still alive, he would definitely have reinforcements that are strong enough to contend against the Pill Emperor Hall. At that time, we shouldn't antagonize him anymore. That person slowly spoke, as the others nodded their heads. Indeed, if Qin Wentian was still alive, it would be best not to antagonize him. Not only for the star-seizing manner, all the transcendent powers here had the same thought. If Qin Wentian died, so be it. But if he was still alive... The news of what happened in the Pill Emperor Hall swiftly spread throughout the entire Moon continent, and even to the entire 9 prefectures of Grand Xia. A month later, Qin Wentian's deeds in the Pill Emperor Hall caused a sensation in Grand Xia. In fact, it was even turned into a children's song, sung by countless people. At the bottom of the cliff, the demon sword howled. Blood fed the demon sword, dragging it for 100,000 miles, ascending the Pill Emperor Hall alone. Unwillingness to part with love, unquenchable hatred, transforming into an ancient demon, a great rock with a wingspan of 3,000 meters, slashing apart the Pill Emperor Hall with his sword. The birth of dried bones, the appearance of a Pill Emperor, life and death severed by the heavens. Who was this young man? The top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wentian. Chapter 431. The legends of Qin Wentian circulated around Grand Xia. Yet Qin Wentian himself had vanished without a trace. There was a rumor saying that when he was in the Pill Emperor Hall, a fairy-like maiden appeared and rescued him. As for the veracity of this rumor, no one could verify it. Qin Wentian's life or death was unknown. Mo Qingqing's life or death was unknown. There were some who said that both of them had already died, while there were others who said that Qin Wentian was still alive, waiting for a day when he would step into the Pill Emperor Hall to avenge Mo Qingqing. Time slowly flowed by. Today, a piece of news caused quite a commotion in the Demon Continent. In the wilderness outside the Demon Continent, there were people who saw a fairy-like silhouette. Her entire body was filled with fatigue, yet she was carrying the gigantic silhouette of a great rock on her back as she soared through the air with great difficulty. Occasionally, that fairy-like silhouette would even cough out a mouthful of fresh blood. When this news circulated around the Demon Continent, the hearts of many trembled. A fairy-like maiden, a gigantic rock? Could it be that the rumor regarding the Pill Emperor Hall was true? There were even people who went to the outskirts of the Demon Continent to investigate. Yet how could they find the silhouette of that fairy-like maiden and the great rock? In the blink of an eye, another month passed. A total of 3 months had already passed since Qin Wentian's heaven-shaking actions in the Pill Emperor Hall. The forested mountain range near the Demon Continent was boundless and boundless. Many adventurers came here, but they didn't dare to venture too deep in. There were simply too many dangers hidden within. And today, in the depths of the mountain range, on top of an ancient mountain peak, a gigantic silhouette could be seen lying there. The eyes of this gigantic silhouette gleamed with sharpness and coldness, as it stared ahead, exuding a sense of sorrow. If one got nearer, they would discover to their shock that this gigantic silhouette was actually the silhouette of a great rock. This great rock was none other than Qin Wentian in his human form. Back then in the battle, his vitality was greatly damaged. Despite transforming into a great rock, his life force was incomparably vigorous, yet he still narrowly lost his life. Luckily, the power of his bloodline was too tyrannical, allowing him to slowly recover. 3 months later, he finally woke up. Not only that, the injuries in his body were gradually healing. Although he was alive, his heart was as cold as ice. Qingqing, was she no longer in this world? Every time he thought of this, his heart would ache even more. His gaze was like a sharp blade, wanting nothing more than to slaughter his way into the Pill Emperor Hall once more. However, why did Qingqing's pellet also disappear? That day after he fainted, Qin Wentian had no idea what happened next. He thought that he would die, but when he woke up, he discovered that he was lying on the back of a fairy-like figure. Qing had been carrying him on her back all this time. In the distance, a gust of wind blew past as a lithe silhouette flickered and appeared in front of the great rock. In her hands, there were some medicinal herbs which she placed in front of Qin Wentian's mouth. Qin Wentian looked at Qing and opened his mouth. Then Qing fed the herb into his mouth. After that, she walked to Qin Wentian's abdomen and prepared to carry him on her back. Qing. At this moment, a voice drifted out from the great rock's mouth, causing Qing's countenance to falter. After which, she slowly walked to the side of Qin Wentian's head and quietly stood there. She was still the same as before, she didn't like to talk. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. There's no need to carry me on your back. I will fully recover after a few more days. It's just that after I passed out that day, what happened? Qingqingxi. Qing turned and stared at Qin Wentian. After which she shook her head and replied, I don't know how she is now. She truly didn't know. She only knew that an extremely powerful expert appeared and told her not to tell Qin Wentian about this. She believed that this person was doing this for Qin Wentian's sake. As for Mo Qingqing, she also had no idea how she was doing at the bottom of the cliff. Qin Wentian fell silent. He turned his eyes and stared into the distance. Qing could feel the sorrow in Qin Wentian's heart. She was speechless, and the two of them fell silent. After a long time, Qing cast another glance at Qin Wentian. Lowering her head, she softly spoke. Maybe she is still alive. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. He turned his gaze onto Qing once more, but he didn't say anything. His countenance gradually dimmed. Maybe Qing was consoling him. Qing, thank you. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, causing Qing's body to tremble. After which, she slowly sat down on the ground, accompanying Qin Wentian just like that. Before this, she was always mysterious and unfathomable. Unless there was something important, she wouldn't show herself. But this time around, she didn't leave and chose to hide in the shadows. Instead, she sat beside Qin Wentian. She could feel the sorrow in Qin Wentian's heart. Everything that Qin Wentian had done in the Pill Emperor Hall, she had personally witnessed it. It was as though she was truly exhausted. After sitting there for a long time, as night gradually descended, Qing closed her eyes and quietly fell asleep. Her body leaned against Qin Wentian's gigantic head. Her breathing was even and rhythmic. Her beauty was dazzling to the extreme. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. Despite the sorrow in his heart, he was still touched. He naturally knew that Qing was injured, and her injuries weren't light either. But since he was a human, how could he be willing to remain a demon forever? There will always be a way. Qing's voice was crisp and melodious, as though she was in deep contemplation. So what if I'm a demon? Since I'm a great rock in the clouds, I'm the king of the skies. As a demon, I also want to be the sovereign of the skies. Qin Wentian's voice was filled with arrogance. The wings of the great rock flapped even more ferociously as he soared through the clouds like a bolt of lightning. After a moment of silence, Qing continued. But I still want you to be a human. Qin Wentian's gaze flickered as he fell into silence once more. A human and a demon continued advancing, as fast as lightning. Finally, a demon city appeared in their vision. Looking down from the clouds, one could see the entirety of the demon city with a single glance. In the air above the celestial lake palace, a raging wind abruptly gusted as a terrifying great rock descended from the skies. This caused the countenances of those from the celestial lake palace to drastically change. When they sensed the tyrannical aura of the great rock, they all exclaimed in shock. That's Princess Qing. At this moment, their gazes abruptly landed on Qing, who was riding on the back of the great rock. Only then did their nervousness recede, as their hearts pounded wildly. Princess Qing had actually returned riding on such a powerful great rock. Numerous silhouettes flickered as the great rock soared through the air, causing a raging wind to kick up. The silhouette of the great rock descended upon the vast public square, its gigantic eyes sweeping through the surroundings, causing the hearts of the spectators to involuntarily tremble. At this moment, a few silhouettes appeared in the air. The person in the lead was an exceedingly beautiful maiden. Just by standing there, She exuded an aura of majesty. At this moment, her gaze landed on the great rock, as a gentle light flickered in her eyes. After which, her silhouette flickered as she appeared beside the great rock. Looking at Qin Wentian, she stated, "Child, it's been hard on you." Qin Wentian's countenance flickered, as a look of bewilderment flashed in his eyes. However, the beautiful maiden then replied, "I'm Qingmei." Fairy Qingmei. A brilliant light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes as he greeted, "I pay my respects to Senior." Fairy Qingmei stretched out her hands, gently stroking Qin Wentian's head. Sighing, she turned her gaze to Qing'er. "Qing'er, are you all right?" Qing'er lightly shook her head, not saying anything. Yet, the hearts of those from the Celestial Lake Palace trembled. Fairy Qingmei had actually appeared. Why was she so gentle towards the great rock? Who was this great rock exactly? The location of the Celestial Lake Palace was too remote. They were situated in the middle of a mountain range, and rarely interacted with the outside world. Hence, the news they knew was much more limited. Other than Fairy Qingmei and a few others, the others didn't know what happened in the Pill Emperor Hall. Everything that happened here is forbidden to be leaked out. Fairy Qingmei's gaze swept over the crowd as she commanded, "Yes, Fairy Qingmei." It was rare for the crowd to see Fairy Qingmei in person. All of them respectfully replied, not daring to defy her command. "Let's go." Fairy Qingmei spoke to Qin Wentian and Qing'er, before turning and departing the area. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.